Chapter 1629. Isn't this robbery? Xiao Hua was dumbfounded. However, there was nothing he could do. Could it be that he had to report to the Taiqing sect and say that his 1,000-year-old profound Yin grass was forcibly exchanged for a magic weapon by 2 sword cultivators? Not to mention that the Taiqing sect already had the mystic Yin grass and wanted to exchange it with Zhang Yuhe. Would it be a problem for him to interfere? Just the origin of the mystic Yin grass was something that he would not be able to explain to Zhen Qing and the others. Truly a female bandit for no reason. Xiao Hua thought angrily, but his gaze landed on the flying sword cruising in the air. After thinking for a moment, Xiao Hua said with a bitter face, "How about this, fellow Daoist Zhang? I don't want your sword controlling technique anymore. How about I just want the sword nurturing technique?" Sword nurturing technique? You really want to nurture a sword? Zhang Yuhe said, without the sword controlling technique, what's the use of nurturing a sword? You don't need to worry about that. Xiao Hua still said the same thing, however, it's really too light just to nurture the sword. It can't compare to my several 1,000-year-old mysterious Yin grass. If fellow Daoist Zhang has a way to repair the sword pill, I can actually consider it. Sword pill repair method? Plus the sword nurturing technique? This time, it was Zhang Yuhe's turn to shake her head. No, the price is too high. Unless you take out 2 profound Yin grasses. Really? Xiao Hua was overjoyed. What? You have 2? Zhang Yuhe's face was only slightly stunned, but there was no joy. After Xiao Hua finished speaking, he felt regret. How could he have 1,000-year-old profound Yin grass just because he said so? Seeing Zhang Yuhe's reaction, he said, I want to, but I don't. I don't even want to. Zhang Yuhe rolled her eyes at him. Zhang Yutong, who had been silent all this time, said, Fellow Daoist Xiao, did you get a damaged sword pill? You want to repair it and use it? Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said, Fellow Daoist Zhang is right. Then, can fellow Daoist Xiao take it out and let I see it? Zhang Yutong stared into Xiao Hua's eyes and said, if possible, I have a compromise. This. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment, then with a wave of his hand, he took out the smallest sword pellet and handed it over. He said, I obtained this by chance when I was training. I originally wanted to throw it away, but it seemed to be fun, so I kept it. How could Zhang Yutong believe Xiao Hua's words? She took the sword pellet and carefully examined it. She spat out a mouthful of true essence onto the sword pellet, but the sword pellet didn't react at all. Soon after, he expressionlessly handed it over to Zhang Yuhe, who had long been itching to give it a try. Zhang Yuhe looked at it even more carefully before casually tossing it to Xiao Hua and saying with a smile, Fellow Daoist Xiao, you really picked this up. What a piece of trash. Xiao Hua's heart went cold. He cupped his hands and said, I'll listen to fellow Daoist's explanation. I won't hide it from fellow Daoist Xiao. The quality of your sword pill is indeed not bad. Even us sisters can't tell its origin. Unfortunately, the so-called sword pellet has the essence of the sword. Your sword pellet is completely dead, so it's impossible for it to give birth to sword essence. Naturally, it can't control the sword. Zhang Yuhe said without any trace of politeness, even if you take the sword nurturing technique and the repair technique, it's impossible for you to come back from the dead. So it's like this. Xiao Hua sighed, waved his hand, and put away the sword pellet. But at this time, Zhang Yutong spoke again, however, after seeing fellow Daoist Xiao's sword pellet, I dare to rashly discuss with fellow Daoist Xiao. What do you mean? Xiao Hua was surprised. Zhang Yutong clapped her hands, took out a jade slip in the shape of half a sword, and said with a smile, I also obtained a sword-controlling technique in my early years. Most of it has been damaged, leaving only the sword-nurturing technique. This sword-nurturing technique is somewhat unconventional and is different from the usual techniques of my Xian sword sect. However, from what I know, this sword-nurturing technique has a unique effect on repairing sword pellets. If fellow Daoist Xiao is willing, I will reluctantly part with this treasure. Zhang Yuhe was stunned, and said while patting her forehead, Sister, I forgot about this thing. How many years has it been? Then, she said to Xiaohua, Sister, this thing can indeed meet fellow Daoist Zhao's requirements, but this sword nurturing technique has very high requirements. Fellow Daoist Xiao, please think about it. AI, forget it, there's nothing to think about. I have no use for this mysterious Yin grass, and the two fellow Taoists also have no use for this jade slip. If we exchange it with each other, it may have some value. Xiaohua said weakly. Okay. Zhang Yutong waved her hand, and the half-broken jade slip flew into Xiaohua's hand. Xiaohua didn't even look at it, and put it in his storage bag. Zhang Yuhe couldn't bear it, and said in a low voice, that Fellow Daoist Xiao, if you find the mysterious Yin grass in the future, you can also come to my Xian sword sect. I beg Master to see if he can give you a sword controlling technique. Ha, thank you, fellow Daoist Zhang. Xiaohua turned around and said, Meng country's mysterious Yin illusion is one of the 10 most dangerous places. I don't know when I can enter it. At that time, if I cultivate a sword pill, it will be too late, right? Fellow Daoist Xiao is right. Sword nurturing starts from the first grade, which is the first level of qi refining. Fellow Daoist Xiao, it's already too late to nurture a sword. Zhang Yuhe said regretfully. It's okay. Zhang Yutong said with a smile, according to the method in the broken sword, you have to nurture a sword at the 9th grade at the latest, which is equivalent to the 12th level of qi refining. Really? Xiaohua was overjoyed. But then, Zhang Yutong said with a smile, it's just a possibility. The later it is, the less likely it is to successfully nurture a sword. In other words, it's impossible to repair it. Ha, there's always some hope. Thank you, fellow Taoists. Xiaohua said with a bow, in addition, I hope you two fellow Taoists can find the mysterious Yin grass. I will take my leave. Zhang Yutong and Zhang Yuhe opened the restriction and let Xiaohua go out. Seeing Xiaohua's depressed face, the other cultivator who came in later was secretly delighted like Xiaohua when he just went in. Xiaohua walked back to the Imperial Thunder Sect's pavilion with mixed feelings. As soon as he entered the door, he ran into Min Gu. Min Ji's expression was already very good, and his steps were vigorous. Seeing Xiaohua coming in from outside, his eyes slightly narrowed, and his face piled up with an indescribable smile. Junior brother Xiao, where did you go? Xiaohua originally didn't want to pay attention to him, but since the other person spoke, he couldn't not answer. After all, they were from the same sect. Just walking around, nothing important. Xiaohua said casually. Ha, it seems junior brother Xiao had a peaceful day, eh? These words were normal, but the word, peaceful, provoked Xiaohua's anger for no reason. Just now, he didn't get the sword-controlling technique, so he snorted coldly. I did mess around, but compared to some people who can no longer participate in the competition, I'm considered lucky. You're talking about I. Min Ji's expression immediately changed. There are many disciples in the entire Bright Realm who can't participate. I'll talk about whoever I want, and I'll talk about whoever doesn't have the face to come up. Xiaohua didn't pay attention to him at all, and walked towards his quiet room. Xiaohua, you're good. What's so great about loose cultivators? Min Gu stomped his feet. Junior brother Min, what are you doing? Wang Yunxiao's angry voice came from the door. This is the Taiqing sect. Why are you being mocked for no reason? Humph. Xiaohua sneered, and activated the magic tablet. He entered the quiet room, and with a flash of brilliance, the quiet room was sealed, and the sound outside was completely silent. He really hated this guy now. Wasn't it just that his cultivation was more profound than his? Wasn't it just that he was still comfortably participating in the Feather Immortal Assembly, and he was already eliminated? How could you possibly know about yours truly's abilities? Xiaohua sneered, and took out the damaged sword-shaped jade slip. He immersed his divine sense in it, and carefully read it. Senior brother Wang, this guy, is getting more and more rampant. He actually dares to scold me. At this time, Mingu couldn't help but say to Wang Yunxiao in the quiet room, why doesn't this guy die in the illusory array? He's wandering in front of I every day. Ha, guess where Xiaohua went just now? Wang Yunxiao said mysteriously. Where did he go? Could it be that he went to the Utopia faction again? Mingu asked. Yuan Bo looked at Wang Yunxiao and frowned. This guy's whereabouts are very mysterious. I'm afraid he went to a place that we don't know about, right? Yes, exactly. I saw him go to the Sword Cultivator's pavilion just now. Sword Cultivator? What did he go there for? Mingu was stunned, but Yuan Bo thought for a moment, and said with a smile, of course he went to exchange something with the Sword Cultivator. He was originally a loose cultivator, and I don't know how many lives he's taken. Naturally, there are some good things in his storage bag. I think he went to the Sword Cultivator to exchange for a magic weapon to use. Sigh, I don't know what the Sword Cultivator wants, and I don't know if that magic weapon is real or not. Mingu sighed. Wang Yunxiao said mysteriously, I don't know if he succeeded in exchanging, but he went in for a long time, and when he came out, he was very arrogant. I think he must have gained something. Could it be, he really exchanged for that magic weapon? Yuan Bo said involuntarily, how many good things did he have in his storage bag? Yes, he is. Mingu also came to a realization, but then he covered his mouth and said, Ancestor Zhen didn't let us say more, there must be something fishy about it. Wang Yunxiao, Yuan Bo, and Mingu all had a kind of understanding on their faces. They looked at each other and secretly calculated in their hearts. In the quiet room, Xiaohua silently withdrew his divine sense from the jade scroll, his face was calm. But it was only calm for a moment. Xiaohua hit the ground with his palm, and a burst of shame and anger appeared on his face. Damn it, I suffered a big loss this time. The method of nurturing this sword pill is not wrong, and it's also a unique way. It's just like Zhang Yutong said, it can repair the sword pill. But, where did I get sword energy? Without sword energy, I can only place this sword pill in my dantian to nurture it. Although there is a secret method to nurture a sword pill with true qi, it's still inferior. The flying sword cultivated is neither fish nor fowl, so it's better to directly use the flying sword technique. Moreover, I've already cultivated the dragon transformation art. My meridians are a whole, and so is my dantian. I can't place a flying sword that I don't know if it can be cultivated in my dantian to nurture and destroy my daily cultivation of the dragon transformation art. Sigh. Xiaohua sighed, feeling a wave of pain in his heart. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Chapter 1630. As for Xiaohua, he had lost several thousand years of profound Yin grass in exchange for an unusable jade slip, causing him to feel indignant. He closed his eyes and meditated for a moment before taking out the jade slip and carefully reading it again. When he had almost finished reading the jade slip, his eyes lit up. Oh, it can actually be nourished with divine sense. What kind of spiritual sword can this nurture? It's just that the possibility of nurturing a spiritual sword is too small. Xiaohua frowned again. Forget it. It's getting late and the sky is bright. Why do I have to participate in the competition today? Alas, why don't? Although Xiaohua thought so, he still couldn't bear to give up. When Xiaohua came out of the quiet room, he ran into other disciples. There were still a dozen or so disciples from the Imperial Thunder sect who were qualified to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly. At this time, they all came out of their quiet rooms. Seeing Xiaohua come out, Sun Shu walked a few steps forward as if he wanted to say something, but Xiaohua was in a bad mood. He glanced at Sun Shu and didn't greet him. Sun Shu was a little embarrassed, but he still walked beside Xiaohua and said in a low voice, Junior Marshal Brother Xiao, a disciple from the Earth Thunder Palace built his foundation yesterday. Did you know? Xiaohua glanced at him, then looked ahead and said in a low voice, "What does other people building their foundation have to do with you?" Sun Shu bit his lip and thought for a moment, then said, "I was just envious. I don't know when I can build my foundation. Maybe it's today, maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's the day after tomorrow." Xiaohua said indifferently, "If you think about building your foundation every day, how can you have a calm heart? Without calmness, how can you build your foundation?" Sun Shu was shocked when he heard this. It was like a basin of cold water had been poured over his head. He didn't care about other people's gazes and bowed respectfully. "Junior Marshal Brother Xiao, please accept I's bow." Xiaohua quickly helped him up and said with a smile, "I'm just saying. I'm not building my foundation, so it's easy for me to say that. Don't think I know a lot." Sun Shu knew what Xiaohua said was reasonable, but Xiaohua reminded him after all, so he was still grateful. Before the two of them even walked out of the pavilion, they were already bowing and supporting each other. In the eyes of some people with ulterior motives, there was naturally a lot of resentment. The competition of the Feather Immortal Gathering was coming to an end. Those who could build their foundation had already found their opportunity. There were many disciples like Sun Shu, who were at the late stage of the 12th level of qi refining. They were so close to building their foundation, but they just couldn't find the knack for it. They were missing that sliver of opportunity. Just as a certain great cultivator had said, although cultivation was made up of 99% hard work and less than 5% chance, that less than 5% chance dictated your fate, and you wouldn't be able to exchange for it even if you used 100% of your hard work. Since they knew that they had come to the Feather Immortal Gathering in vain, all the disciples held back during the battles. Of course, there were also some disciples who harbored wishful thinking and blindly clung onto him. They wanted to use 100% of their hard work to exchange for less than 5% of the opportunity. Fortunately, in the next 2 days, Xiaohua didn't encounter any opponents that were too valiant. When the disciples of the other sects saw Xiaohua's outstanding flying skills, they basically gave up on trying to kill him. Instead, they carried out a rather disciplined competition with each other. Therefore, although Xiaohua's results in the first round of the Feather Immortal Gathering weren't good, they were definitely not bad. He was actually ranked second among the 20 disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect. Other than Qian Mo from the Heavenly Thunder Palace who was ranked 10th, he actually beat Kun Fian from the Heavenly Thunder Palace and was ranked 23rd among the top 32 disciples. Kun Fian was ranked 30th. Of course, those disciples who had built their foundation didn't participate in the second round of the competition. In the eyes of everyone, Xiaohua's ranking was really a little unbelievable. But thinking about it carefully, on the first day of the Feather Immortal Gathering, Xiaohua obtained 12 points and was ranked first in the Imperial Thunder sect. In the subsequent battles, Xiaohua mostly won, and only a few lost. It was normal for him to be ranked second. Moreover, don't forget that Xiaohua had killed a disciple from the Changbai sect of Meng who had a magic treasure. If such a fierce person didn't enter the top 32, it could only mean that the heavens were unfair. This kind of result was worth mentioning to others, but in Xiaohua's eyes, this wasn't what he was happy about. On the second day after Xiaohua obtained the sword nurturing method, he carefully thought about how to bring the sword pill into his Naiwan palace at night to nourish it with his divine thoughts. He was surprised to find that in the heart of his Buddha Sarira, there were actually dots of Buddha light. These different colored Buddha light actually formed a faintly discernible Buddha fire. Xiaohua was immediately overjoyed because to nurture the sword pill, one had to rely on the nascent vital energy in the Dantian and nascent divine thoughts in the Naiwan palace. The Buddha Sarira had already taken shape, but the Buddha fire in the heart of the Buddha Sarira was still nascent. It could be used to nurture the sword pill. Naturally, Xiaohua didn't know whether it would be a spiritual sword or a Buddha sword that would be nurtured. What he was thinking now was to not let the several thousand profound Yin grass be given away in vain. Moreover, the sword pill was also picked up for free, it would be a waste not to refine it. The sword nurturing method that Zhang Yutong gave him was indeed real. After Xiaohua sent the 9 sword pills and the small bucket that contained them into the heart of the Buddha Sarira, he began to comprehend the sword nurturing method. After several days of bitter cultivation, he actually gradually stepped onto the right track. The Buddha fire formed by the Buddha light was the same as sword origin, vital energy, or divine thoughts. It slowly covered the 9 sword pills and the small bucket together, slowly mending and nurturing them. Of course, Xiaohua was still somewhat baffled. He wasn't too clear on how the heart of the Buddha appeared in the Buddha Sarira. Let's wait until the exquisite leaf scripture is complete. There must be a detailed record inside. This was the method that Xiaohua thought of in his joy. Nurturing spiritual swords wasn't something that could be done overnight. Xiaohua didn't plan to use flying swords for the time being. He just let them be nurtured in the Buddha fire. After the first stage of the Feather Immortal Gathering, there was only one day of rest. This day was the same as the first day of the Feather Immortal Gathering. Through the battles these days, many disciples obtained good things that they didn't need from their opponents. At this time, they could also take them to the square to exchange with others. Most importantly, some sects didn't want some of their things to fall outside. At this time, they could also take advantage of the situation. The sects that had these things offered a price. Generally speaking, the other sects wouldn't refuse. After all, this kind of thing could happen to both sides. In fact, Xiaohua got so many things from the storage bag of Fan Tong of the Changbai sect that day. If it wasn't for the fact that the quantity was too large, the Changbai sect could also make a request to the Imperial Thunder sect at this time. Of course, the premise was that Xiaohua was willing. Xiaohua was a money grubber in his bones. How could he return the things that were in his hands? Therefore, he was too lazy to go to this kind of trade gathering. He closed his door and cultivated bitterly. However, when it was close to noon, the restriction of the quiet room suddenly shook a little. Xiaohua frowned and opened the restriction. There was someone outside his door. Why is it this guy? Xiaohua's divine sense swept over and was stunned. It was Ku Xingxi of the Kunlun sect who was in line with him in front of the sword cultivator's door that day. Could it be, he knows that I exchanged profound Yin grass for the sword cultivators? Xiaohua's face was a little gloomy and uncertain. He felt a little guilty. That can't be right. Even if someone is looking for trouble, it should be the Taiqing sect. Their profound Yin grass was lost, Xiaohua thought, and could only open the door. He cupped his hands and said, I wonder what fellow Taoist wants. Seeing that it was Xiaohua, Ku Xingxi was very happy. He cupped his hands and said, I was wondering why fellow Taoist Zhao's name sounded so familiar. So it's really the fellow Taoist we met that night. Xiaohua's heart moved. He smiled apologetically and said, What? Could it be? Fellow Taoist Ku exchanged for something that you deliberately wanted? Hee, how could it be? Who knows what those 2 sword cultivators wanted to exchange for? I and the other fellow Taoists knew that there were magic treasures that could be exchanged for, but we couldn't find what they needed. Then, he asked Xiaohua mysteriously, did fellow Taoist Xiao exchange for that magic treasure? Xiaohua shrugged and spread out his hands. If I were to exchange, would those 2 sword cultivators still be able to exchange with fellow Taoists? That's right, so I also know that fellow Taoist Xiao is also empty-handed like I. Ku Xingxi said with a smile. Xiaohua was puzzled again. What? Fellow Taoist Ku came here today for this? Ku Xingxi shook his head repeatedly. Of course not. I was sent by martial ancestor Han Zhu to invite fellow Taoist Xiao for a chat. Han Zhu? Martial ancestor Han? Xiaohua was stunned. He naturally knew that this Han Zhu was a senior who practiced Buddhist cultivation techniques. But, didn't he say that he would come to find me after the Feather Immortal Gathering? Moreover, he repeatedly warned me not to reveal my Buddhist cultivation, so why did he send a disciple to find me? Fellow Taoist Xiao, do you know my martial ancestor Han? Ku Xingxi asked with a smile. Xiaohua heard and quickly shook his head. I don't know, I've never seen your martial ancestor Han. That's strange. Martial ancestor Han specifically asked I to invite fellow Taoist Xiao. I thought that fellow Taoist Xiao was very close to martial ancestor Han. Ku Xingxi was also somewhat confused. I don't dare to disobey an elder's orders. Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said, fellow Taoist Ku, lead the way. Won't we know once we go and take a look? If we delay for too long, won't Senior Han be unhappy? That's right, that's right. Ku Xingxi didn't care about getting closer to Xiao Hua and hurriedly left with him. Just as they walked out of the pavilion, Yuan Bo and Min Gu walked out of their quiet room and looked at each other. The two of them also followed Xiao Hua and Ku Xingxi and watched the two of them enter the Kunlun sect pavilion. Yuan Bo and Min Gu looked at each other, their eyes full of doubt. Min Gu transmitted his voice, Senior brother Yuan Bo, this Xiao Hua is becoming more and more strange. How does he know a disciple of the Kunlun sect of the Lian country? How would we know? But what we can be sure of is that there's definitely something wrong with this guy. He's definitely not a pure loose cultivator. He must have some other purpose for joining my Imperial Thunder sect. Yes, I also have the same idea. Min Gu sneered. The two of them turned and entered the square, but their eyes were still wandering around the Kunlun sect pavilion. Chapter 1631. Ku Xingxi brought Xiao Hua to a rather large quiet room. Han Zhu was sitting inside with his eyes closed. When he saw Ku Xingxi leading Xiao Hua into the quiet room, he waved his hand. Ku Xingxi bowed respectfully and left, not daring to say a word. Sit down. Han Zhu pointed at the futon beside him and said in a low voice. Yes, I will do as you say. Xiao Hua respectfully sat down. Then, Han Zhu activated the restriction in the room. He stretched out his hand and pointed a few times in the air. A light curtain-like restriction appeared in the air and covered both Xiao Hua and Han Zhu. Finally, Han Zhu took out a small sparkling flag from his bosom and waved it. The world spirit qi in the surroundings was sucked dry. Another layer of three-colored brilliance flashed. It seemed like another layer of restriction had been added. After doing all this, Han Zhu transmitted his voice to Xiao Hua, it's okay to be in the square in Tai Ching sect's territory, but you have to be careful here. I understand. Xiao Hua also transmitted his voice, didn't you say to contact me after the Feather Immortal Assembly? Won't it be much safer then? It's the same no matter when. Han Zhu smiled and said, after the Feather Immortal Assembly, you will return to the country of Xi with the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect. I have even less reason to look for you. Xiao Hua nodded slightly and didn't say anything. The person in front of him was a gold core stage senior. In terms of cultivation of the Buddhist sect, he was even more unreachable. He could only be in a position arranged by others. I have been secretly observing you these few days. Han Zhu's face was filled with gratification. He said, to be honest, I didn't expect your skills to be so good even though your cultivation level is not high. That spear tip seems to be a demonic weapon. You used it to perfection. It's really amazing. I don't dare. It's just a trivial matter. It's not worthy of your attention. Xiao Hua said humbly. Not at all. Not at all. Han Zhu shook his head and said, you don't know. Early in the ancient times, a group of cultivators only cultivated their bodies. They didn't cultivate their hearts or Tao. They could prove their Tao with just their celestial bodies. The Tao of breaking through with strength has existed since ancient times. Moreover, there is also the cultivation method of the great strength Vajra in the Buddhist sect. It emphasizes the strength of the body. Becoming a saint with your physical body. Envy appeared in Xiao Hua's eyes as he said in a low voice, it's a pity that Junior doesn't have such a technique and can only barely win in the battle. That's exactly why I called you here today. Han Zhu smiled and said, I wonder if you understood the golden puppet I gave you last time. Senior, please understand. Junior has seen a few superficial ones, and only feels that the profoundness within is limitless. Xiao Hua nodded and said, but, This golden ni seems to be incomplete. Great. Hanju clapped and said, it's just as you said. This is only the first half of the golden centipede. Yes, or perhaps it's the first part. As for the golden centipede after that, I don't have it myself. Then. Xiaohua somewhat understood. His eyes turned and asked, where can I find it? Do you know the ruins of the Buddhist sect? Hanju stared at Xiaohua and asked. Junior has seen it in a secret manual. It seems to be a very dangerous place. As for where it is, Junior doesn't know. Xiaohua said honestly. Yes, in fact, the so-called ruins of the Buddhist sect is just a general name. The real core is located. Besides this old man, I'm afraid no one else in this world knows. Hanju sighed. According to this old man's estimation, the second half of the golden centipede, as well as many Buddhist sect cultivation methods, are also inside. Xiaohua's heart moved. He smiled apologetically and said, Senior means, could it be that you want Junior to go with Senior? You? Hanju glanced at Xiaohua and shook his head, you want to go. Unfortunately, your cultivation is too low. This old man wants to help you, but I can't. Good, that's good. Xiaohua let out a long sigh of relief and secretly shouted in his heart. He was really afraid that Hanju wanted him to go to the ruins of the Buddhist sect. In front of Hanju, his cultivation was like a chicken. If he went, he would only be used by others. As if he could understand Xiaohua's thoughts, Hanju glared at Xiaohua and coldly snorted, Look at you, how can you become a capable person? If this old man goes to the ruins of the Buddhist sect, I will definitely go by myself. Bringing you along will only be a burden. Are you afraid that this old man will harm you? Xiaohua said in panic, Junior doesn't dare. Junior's cultivation is too shallow. I don't dare to go to those dangerous places. Sigh, it's not your fault. Hanju sighed. Nowadays, the cultivation world is full of intrigue and intrigue. It's a life and death struggle. Where is the peace and prosperity of the Buddhist sect? The Buddhist sect's prosperous paradise is not something you can imagine. Paradise? Xiaohua was stunned. What kind of place is that? What is recorded in the Golden Centipede is the Buddhist sect's ruins. As for whether there is still a paradise in this world after the Buddhist sect is destroyed, this old man doesn't know. Actually, to tell you the truth, Xiaohua, this old man has been searching for where the Buddhist sect went. What? Wasn't the Buddhist sect destroyed? Xiaohua asked in disbelief, isn't this what Senior said? Little guy, don't forget that the Buddhist sect is the same as the Taoist sect. If someone says that the cultivation world was destroyed by the Buddhist sect, do you think it's possible? Xiaohua frowned and thought for a long time, then shook his head and said, if it's my Imperial Thunder sect or the Kunlun sect that was destroyed, then it's possible. Even the entire country of Shi or the country of Lian was destroyed, but how could the cultivation orthodoxy be destroyed? Isn't there still the Cultivation Alliance in the far west? That's right. Hanju clapped and said, a sect of the Buddhist sect can be destroyed, but the orthodoxy of the Buddhist sect will definitely not be destroyed. As for where they went, that's really a mystery. Moreover, since the Buddhist sect's ruins are in our 3 cultivation countries, and our 3 cultivation countries are so isolated from the Cultivation Alliance in the far west, don't you think there's a problem? Xiaohua smiled bitterly. This junior only heard of the Cultivation Alliance before coming to the Feather Immortal Assembly. This junior has never thought about the Buddhist sect. Aren't you curious? Don't you want to cultivate the Vajrabodhi? Vajrabodhi? Xiaohua was startled, then he quickly shook his head. This junior only needs the Imperial Thunder sect's cultivation method. I don't dare to think about other things. You really don't want it? Hanju smiled and said, this old man saw that your divine strength was incomparable, so I wanted to teach you the incomplete cultivation method in my hands. There really is such a cultivation method? Xiaohua was dumbfounded. With that, Hanju clapped his hand and another golden puppet appeared in his hand. He asked, there is indeed such a cultivation method. However, the cultivation method of the Vajra body is different from the cultivation method and the cultivation method of the body cultivator. In this old man's opinion, it's really inconceivable. Xiaohua reached out his hand, but withdrew it again. He shook his head and said, even senior finds it difficult, this junior doesn't want to see it. He, take it. Han Zhu waved his hand and the golden puppet flew to Xiaohua. Han Zhu said in a lonely tone, it is fate that the Buddhist sect's cultivation method can be successfully cultivated by you and me. If this old man doesn't give you the Vajra body's cultivation method, who else can I give it to? Besides, the Vajra body is also an ultimate technique of the Buddhist sect. Cultivating it together with the relic can complement each other. Your relic's cultivation method is too low level. Perhaps you can use this Vajra body to make up for it. Xiaohua was secretly delighted and said with a smile, I don't dare to refuse the elder's gift. This junior thanks you. Han Zhu waved his hand, then took out a small pale golden Buddha from his storage bag. He flew to Xiaohua and said, take this thing first. When your cultivation reaches the middle or late stage of foundation establishment, then immerse your divine sense into it. There will be a message left for you by this old man inside. Remember, it's best to look at it when you're at the late stage of foundation establishment. There's no benefit in looking at it earlier. Yes, this junior understands. Xiaohua kept the small golden Buddha and replied respectfully. After that, Han Zhu didn't ask Xiaohua anything else. He closed his eyes and slowly told Xiaohua about some of his experiences, taboos, and detours in cultivating the Buddhist sect's relic. Xiaohua was overjoyed when he heard it and quickly memorized it in his heart. After a long time, Han Zhu reminded Xiaohua, during these few days of the Feather Immortal Assembly, if you have time, you can come to this old man's place. If someone asks, just say that this old man met you when he was traveling in the country of Xi and had a good impression of you. I gave you some pointers. Yes, this is not a problem. This kid used to be a loose cultivator. This answer is the best. Xiaohua stood up respectfully and said. Oh, this is this old man's keepsake. Take one. If Zhen Qing asks, let him take a look. Han Zhu waved his hand and a jade pendant flew into Xiaohua's hand. On the jade pendant was a lofty mountain ridge with a round moon hanging high in the sky. The jade pendant was cold to the touch and was somewhat icy. Senior's consideration is really meticulous. Thank you, Senior. Xiaohua kept the jade pendant and bowed to express his gratitude. Yes, you can go now. Han Zhu waved his hand and said, the second stage of the Feather Immortal Gathering is a competition for the reputation of the various sections. Although your cultivation is not bad, there is no need for you to get involved. It is better to focus on your cultivation. I understand. I do not want to participate in the first stage of the competition. However, due to the rules of the Feather Immortal Gathering and my master's reputation, I have no choice but to participate. I heard that. You also gained a lot of benefits. Han Zhu said with a smile. Xiaohua slapped his forehead and said with a smile, I was careless. As he spoke, he slapped his hand and took out a soul concentrating pill for golden core stage cultivators and handed it to Han Zhu. He said, I do not know about golden core stage cultivators' elixirs. This soul concentrating pill is what my Imperial Thunder Sect's ancestor Zhen wants. Senior, do you want to? I do not need the soul concentrating pill. My Buddhist sect cultivates the soul. Take out the other elixirs. Han Zhu did not hold back and said with a smile. Yes, I have been rude. Xiaohua hurriedly took out one elixir from each of the elixirs. Han Zhu took a few glances and pointed his finger. A three-colored elixir flew into Xiaohua's hand. This is the soul-nourishing pill. It is used by golden core stage cultivators to nourish their spiritual sense. It has other uses that others do not know about. Han Zhu said with a smile, the Buddhist sect's cultivation techniques are marvelous. However, when it comes to refining elixirs, it is far inferior to the Taoist sect. Chapter 1632. Is that so? Xiaohua smiled and picked up the other medicinal pill, respectfully delivering it in front of Han Zhu. Senior, you've given me a lot of pointers, so this medicinal pill is my filial piety. Han Zhu glanced at Xiaohua and nodded. Fine, I really do need this medicinal pill, so I won't argue with you. If it weren't for this mind enchantment fruit being too hard to find, I'd also refine some myself. As he spoke, he very casually put it away. To Taoist cultivators, this mind nourishment pill only mends divine sense, but to Buddhist cultivators, it's nurturing relics. Han Zhu also didn't hold back and said in a low voice, when your cultivation reaches core formation, you can also try taking it yourself. Xiaohua put the medicinal pills into his storage pouch and said with a wry smile, I don't even dare to hope for foundation establishment, so how can I dare to think about core formation now? Ha ha ha, I won't say much, you'll naturally know in the future. Han Zhu laughed loudly and waved his hand, indicating for Xiaohua to leave. Just as Han Zhu opened the quiet room's restriction, Xiaohua's eyes turned and he said with a smile, Senior, I'll take the liberty to ask, what? Is there something else? Han Zhu stared blankly. That. Senior definitely has the pill formula for the mind nourishment pill, right? What's this mind enchantment fruit? If possible, can Senior bestow the pill formula for the mind nourishment pill to me? Xiaohua said somewhat hesitantly, if I come across it in the future, I can also exchange it to show my filial piety to Senior. Okay, this pill formula isn't anything special. I obtained it from a Changbai sect foundation establishment cultivator in my early years. Han Zhu didn't hide it, waving his hand and a jade slip flew out. Xiaohua received it, then bowed and took his leave, leaving the quiet room. Outside the quiet room, Ku Xingxi had been waiting respectfully the whole time. Seeing Xiaohua come out, he hurriedly welcomed him and said with a smile, Fellow Taoist Xiao. Xiaohua had already seen him and immediately cupped his hands with a smile. Fellow Taoist Ku, so your sect's senior Han Zhu is a senior I met in my early years when I was traveling. I didn't know his name before, but now that I've met him again, I'm really happy. Fellow Taoist Xiao's a lucky chance. Ku Xingxi's face was full of envy. Martial ancestor Han Zhu probably has a good reputation in our humble sect. He's very approachable. Fellow Taoist Xiao must have received a lot of guidance in his early years. Xiaohua nodded. That's right. Back then, I didn't know that Senior Han Zhu was a core formation cultivator. I even thought he was a foundation establishment cultivator. After a few more words, Xiaohua cupped his hands and took his leave. When Xiaohua walked out of the Kunlun sect's pavilion, Yuan Bo and Min Gu, who had been waiting outside for a long time, immediately followed from a distance, wanting to see where Xiaohua was going. Who would have thought that Xiaohua would return to his quiet room and not come out for the whole night, until the next morning, not waiting for Xiaohua to open the restriction of the quiet room, the walls of the quiet room flashed with brilliance. Who's visiting so early? Xiaohua opened his eyes and thought somewhat unhappily. Yesterday, when he returned to the quiet room, he carefully savored the cultivation experience of the Buddhist sect Sarira that Han Zhu had told him. He firmly remembered every word and sentence in his heart and thought about it over and over again. At this moment, he was still comparing them with his own Sarira with great interest. Now that he saw someone come to visit, he was naturally unhappy. When he opened the restriction of the quiet room, he heard Sun Shu's voice. Junior Marshal Brother Xiao, hurry, hurry. The second stage of the competition is about to be announced. Many disciples have already gone out to wait. Junior Marshal Brother Xiao is in the middle of the competition. Could it be that you're not anxious? Anxious? Xiaohua shook his head slightly. This 23rd place was really a bit too much. According to his previous thoughts, he didn't plan to enter the top 32 at all. However, seeing Sun Shu greet him, Xiaohua smiled and said, Senior Marshal Sister Sun, I was really lucky to be able to enter the top 32. The second stage of the competition is even more intense. I don't dare to have extravagant hopes. Sun Shu waved her hand and said, hurry up and go. We've already entered the second stage of the competition. How can it still be up to you? Didn't you hear? The disciples who just entered the top 10 will all get a reliance pill. What? Reliance pill? The legendary medicinal pill that can increase one's chances of reaching foundation establishment? Xiaohua's eyes lit up, and he said anxiously, this thing. Our Imperial Thunder sect doesn't even know what kind of spiritual grass to use. How can their Taiqing sect have it? Sun Shu smiled and shook her head. How would I know? It's all said by others. But since someone said it, there's naturally a source of information. It's better to believe it than not. That's right. Xiaohua's heart was also filled with energy. He quickly followed Sun Shu out of the pavilion. At this time, there were already many people in the square. They were all disciples from various sects who came to watch the competition. Xiaohua and the others stood still and waited for the time it took to brew a cup of tea. In the air in front of the square, there was a loud bang as a signal similar to a firework exploded. Immediately after, a huge light screen appeared where the firework came from. The light screen was overflowing with colorful lights and all kinds of colors mixed with each other. It was like a pot of porridge that had been opened. Little friends. Renju appeared in front of the light screen and said with a smile, more than half of the Feather Immortal Assembly has been successfully held. In the first stage of the competition, 12 disciples have successfully reached foundation establishment. This is the highest number of foundation establishment disciples in the history of the Feather Immortal Assembly. This also proves the correctness of the Feather Immortal Assembly held by the three kingdoms of cultivation. The experience of our ancestors has already proved that although meditation can increase one's cultivation, it's not enough to break through the realm. Cultivators who have been stuck at the bottleneck for a long time should experience more life and death. Only then can they temper their Taoist heart and improve their realm. 32 disciples have been selected in the first stage of the Feather Immortal Assembly. These 32 disciples will be eliminated in the second stage of the competition to determine the top 4. Of course, if any disciple reaches foundation establishment in the competition, he will have to withdraw from the competition and the opponent will win. Let's not talk about the reward for the top 4. In this Feather Immortal Assembly, our Taiqing sect sincerely requests the Immortal Alliance to bestow 8 excuse pills. The top 8 of this competition will receive an extra excuse pill. Boom! The disciples in the square all started to discuss among themselves. They had come here to verify the news of the reliance pills. Although the number of reliance pills was not the same, the reliance pills really did exist, so how could they not be excited? Immortal Alliance? Xiaohua, who was in the square, was slightly stunned. He said to himself, what is this Immortal Alliance? Why haven't I heard of it? What do you think? Fellow Taoist Xiao, if you can enter the top 8, the excuse pill will increase your chances of reaching foundation establishment by 20%. Sun Shu said with an envious expression. Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. He transmitted his voice, Senior Sun, this Immortal Alliance. What is it? Immortal Alliance? Sun Shu was slightly surprised. Fellow Taoist Xiao doesn't know about the Immortal Alliance. If I knew, would I still ask Senior Sun? Xiaohua shook his head. Then. Fellow Taoist Xiao knows about the War of Immortals and Demons. Demon-resisting valley? Sun Shu asked. Xiaohua continued to transmit his voice, I've heard of it, but I'm not very clear about it. Sun Shu was about to speak when Renju, who was in midair, raised her voice again. Invite the leaders of each sect to come over and arrange the battle situation. When Sun Shu heard this, she became excited. She said in a low voice, let's talk about this later. Look at who your opponent is. Xiaohua looked up and saw that the light screen in midair was divided into 2 parts. The lower half was still flowing with light and overflowing with color, chaotic, while the upper half was calm. Moreover, at the very bottom, there was a row of 32 small cubes. Above the cubes, there was another row of 16 cubes. Above that, there were 8 cubes, 4 cubes, 2 cubes, and 1 cubes. Xiaohua understood that these 32 squares were the names of the 32 disciples. The 16 squares in the second row were the names of the disciples who won the first round. The one at the top should be the champion of this competition. Sure enough, following Ren Zhu's voice, the 12 golden core cultivators of the thunder-controlling sect, Liao Zhouquan of the Changbai sect, and others flew to Ren Zhu's side. Ren Zhu smiled and said, "My Tai Ching sect is organizing this feather immortal gathering. Therefore, my Tai Ching sect will not participate in the arrangement. Once everyone is arranged, the remaining seats will belong to my Tai Ching sect's disciples. Which one of you will go first?" "I will go first." The golden core cultivator of the immortal ascending sect, Yang Fan, stepped forward and smiled. "I will send Su Fu, Wu Qiming, and He Shoujing to the top 32. As he said that, 3 shiny tokens appeared in his hand. Yang Fan waved his hand and the 3 tokens flew into the lower half of the flowing light. The entire brilliance scattered and the 3 tokens could be seen flying around casually. After a while, each of them flew into a different grid. Su Fu's name landed on the 16th grid, Wu Qiming's name landed on the 5th grid, and He Shoujing's name landed on the 18th grid. "Great!" Yang Fan clapped his hands and smiled. "Ai's luck is not bad." As he spoke, he retreated to the side. It's Ai's turn. The golden core cultivator of the immortal music sect, Tian Wei, stepped forward with a smile and said, "My immortal music sect only has 2 disciples in the top 32. Yang Fan, who was beside him, smiled and said, "Your immortal music sect already has a female disciple in the foundation establishment stage. What are you not satisfied with?" "Ha!" Tian Wei laughed and waved his hand. 2 shiny tokens also flew into the air. After a while, 2 tokens appeared. One was Zhong Tianqing who landed on the 11th place, and the other was Li Yu who landed on the 31st place. Ai's luck is not bad too. Tian Wei smiled and retreated half a step. Zhen Qing stepped forward and said, "My thunder-controlling sect has 3 disciples in the foundation establishment stage. Let's see Ai's luck." As she spoke, she also threw 3 tokens into the air. In a moment, the results were revealed. However, Zhen Qing's expression was a little absent-minded. She shook her head and smiled bitterly. "Looks like Ai's luck is not as good as yours." Everyone in the square was also discussing. Qian Mo's token landed on the 3rd place, while Xiaohua and Kun Fian's tokens landed on the 20th and 19th places respectively. In other words, in the first round of the competition, Xiaohua and Kun Fian would face off against each other. Only one of the 2 disciples from the thunder-controlling sect could enter the second round. This kind of situation where disciples from the same sect met each other was extremely rare in the Feather Immortal gathering. It had to be said that Zhen Qing's luck was really bad. Chapter 1633. Kun Fian, who was standing not too far away from Xiaohua, had a bad look on her face. In the first round of the competition, her ranking was not as good as Xiaohua's. If it was another group, perhaps the ranking would not be comparable. However, she was in the same group as Xiaohua. Their opponents were exactly the same. If Xiaohua could suppress her, Xiaohua's cultivation would definitely be higher than hers. She really did not expect that Xiaohua, who only knew how to run away during the selection of the Imperial Thunder sect, would improve so much in the Feather Immortal Assembly. Although she did not break through to the Foundation establishment stage through the life and death competition of the Feather Immortal Assembly, her cultivation did indeed improve. Not only her, but Li Xiaoxiao, Sun Shu, and the others also improved. However, compared to Xiaohua, they were still too far away. Compared to Kun Fian, Xiaohua's expression was very normal. It seemed that there was no change at all. This made Kun Fian feel that Xiaohua had a card up his sleeve. Then, The Golden Core stage representatives of the various sects also threw out the nameplates of their disciples. The 32 disciples were finally arranged: Meng Country, Celestial Ascension Sect, Su Fu, 16th, Wu Qiming, 5th, He Shouzheng, 18th, Xianle Sect, Zhong Tianqing, 11th, Li Yu, 31st, Changbai Sect, Ma Junmin, 15th, Lu Xishu, 27th, Taiqing Sect, Fan Qiaoer, 10th, Shao Minghan, 21st, Lian Country, Nanming Sect, Lu Qi, 4th, Yang Difu, 30th, Xie Xiaoxing, 6th, Kunlun Sect, Kuxingxi, 25th, Zhang Haoren, 13th, Xian Tian Sect, Yan Feiming, 9th, Zhang Yihao, 32nd, Utopia Sect, Yang Fangcheng, 8th, Zhang Xian, 24th, Shi Country, Huanhua Sect, Kai Hongxia, 2nd, Yun Guichong, 28th, Zhang Shiqian, 22nd, Imperial Thunder Sect, Qian Mo, 3rd, Shaohua, 20th, Kun Fian, 19th, Xunyan Sect, Zhuoqing Yuan, 17th, Zhang Shaojiang, 29th, Qiqiao Sect, Qian Ming, 7th, Tsing Xiangguan, 14th, Wei, 26th, Shang Huazong, Fan Wentao, 1st, LV Yanyan, 12th, Qi Zhiqin, 23rd. Zhen Qing was originally in a bad mood. However, when she saw that there were 3 disciples from the Imperial Thunder sect among the 32 disciples, which was more than the previous Feather Immortal Gathering's 2 disciples. It was even more than the number of disciples from the Xuanyan school in the country of Xi. As for Xiaohua, he looked at his own position. After fighting with Kun Fian, his next match would be against the winner of Zhang Shaojiang and Yang Difu's match. One of them was taught by Xuanyan, the other from Nanming sect. He wasn't familiar with them, so he didn't know how much stronger they were compared to him. Alright, disciples, your seats have been arranged. Go back and rest for a while. After an hour, we will begin the second stage of the Feather Immortal Gathering. Ren Zhu said loudly. After everyone left the square, the Golden Core stage masters from the various sects also descended from the sky. Jiang Changhong from Xuanyan sect had an ugly expression on her face. When she saw Zhen Qing, she mocked herself, fellow Taoist Zhen, congratulations. This year, not only did you have a disciple in the foundation establishment stage, there are also 3 disciples who entered the second stage. That Qian Mo is actually ranked 10th among the 32 disciples. This is really worthy of congratulations. Zhen Qing's face was also filled with regret. Sigh, that is the reward for the disciples' hard work. Furthermore, the points of the first stage are also related to the groups. If your sect was in the same group as the Imperial Thunder sect, I'm afraid that there would be more disciples entering. Seeing Zhen Qing's humility, Jiang Changhong's mood was slightly better. She nodded and said, yes, this is also luck. Of course, I's luck is not good. It's a pity that when 2 disciples went up, they were both from the same sect. Only 1 disciple can enter the second stage. What a pity. Fellow Taoist Zhen, out of these 2 disciples, who do you think will win? Zhen Qing looked at Jiang Changhong in confusion. She didn't understand why he was so concerned about the Imperial Thunder sect disciples. I was just casually asking. Jiang Changhong quickly smiled and said, I'm sure that there are many disciples who didn't participate in the second stage of the competition who are very curious, right? Sigh, fellow Taoist Jiang is right. Zhen Qing pondered for a moment. She hesitated for a moment and said, according to I's observation, Xiaohua should win. Why? This Xiaohua seems to only be at the early stage of the qi refining stage. Although he has advanced by leaps and bounds in this period of time and seems to be showing signs of entering the middle stage, compared to that female disciple called Kun Fian, he is still lacking by quite a bit, right? Stage is only one aspect. Zhen Qing said. She suddenly paused and smiled. Wouldn't you know if you look at their rankings? Xiaohua's ranking is higher than Kun Fian's. That's right, that's right. Jiang Changhong smiled and walked away. Strange, why would this guy be so interested in a qi refining cultivator from my Imperial Thunder sect? Zhen Qing was puzzled. Fellow Daoist Zhen, not far away, Xiong Fei called out, the two female sword cultivators from the Xianjian sect have already stayed in the Hao realm for quite some time. It seems like they haven't found what they want yet. Should we go and take a look? Hehe, what good things can a small cultivator of the drawing sword first stage have? Zhen Qing smiled. I heard the disciples say that they have magic treasures. Why don't we go take a look? Then fellow Taoist Xiong, please. Zhen Qing nodded and said. Not to mention that Zhen Qing and Xiong Fei went to see Zhang Yutong and Zhang Yuhe, Xiaohua followed everyone back to the pavilion. Just as he sat down in the quiet room, he saw Qian Diheng calling for him. What? Martial Uncle Zhen, you called me over. What's the matter? Xiaohua was very surprised. Qian Diheng smiled, what can it be? It's just a routine encouragement. It seems that senior martial brother Qian Mo already went over. All right. Xiaohua followed Qian Diheng into Zhen Yu's quiet room. Zhen Yu's quiet room was a little dark. Zhen Yu sat on the chair at the head of the table. Xiaohua stood about 10 feet in front of Zhen Yu respectfully. After waiting for a while, Zhen Yu didn't say anything. Xiaohua felt a little strange and sneaked a glance in front of him. Coincidentally, Zhen Yu was also looking at Xiaohua. Their gazes met and Zhen Yu smiled. Xiaohua, I called you over today to ask your opinion about the Feather Immortal Gathering. It's pretty good. When the disciples of the various sects spar, not only can they get to know each other better, they can also increase their cultivation. This kind of competition should be held frequently. Xiaohua blurted out. Ha ha ha. Zhen Yu laughed and shook his head, don't keep me in suspense. Your master and I are old friends. If he was here, he definitely wouldn't say such things. Xiaohua smiled apologetically, then I'll have to ask Martial Uncle Zhen for advice. What do I have to say? If you didn't know when you first came here, how could you not know now? Zhen Yu sneered, now, how could you not know that the Feather Immortal Gathering is an opportunity for the disciples of the various sects to fight each other to the death? It's an opportunity for them to grow amidst the bloodshed. Xiaohua was speechless and didn't reply. Actually, I've been observing you. Ever since you registered for the Feather Immortal Gathering's disciple selection at the Diligent Thunder Hall, I've been paying attention to you. Zhen Yu said in an amiable manner, at that time, your flying speed was extremely fast, but your cultivation wasn't very good. Therefore, you were lucky enough to obtain the last qualification to participate in the Feather Immortal Gathering. I won't hide it from you. That day, I wanted to persuade your master. He might not know what the Feather Immortal Gathering is like, but I know it very well. However, participating in the Feather Immortal Gathering is an honor for the Imperial Thunder sect. Your myriad Thunder Valley hasn't had a disciple participate in it for many years. I can't embarrass you. After coming to the Hao realm, I have been secretly protecting you. I don't want you to get injured during the competition. Hehe, I'm sure you don't know about this. Xiaohua said respectfully, how would I know about Martial Uncle Zhen's cultivation? I'm grateful for Martial Uncle Zhen's protection. Hehe, actually. I didn't mean to tell you all this. I didn't want you to know about it. However, you exceeded my expectations. Not only did you not get injured during the competition, you even managed to enter the top 32. This improvement is really huge. I can't help it. Senior Martial Brother is really good at teaching disciples. When I return to the Imperial Thunder sect, I'll definitely report this to the Vice Sect leader. The Thunderous Palace will definitely reward the myriad Thunder Valley greatly. Xiaohua cursed in his heart, but he still maintained a respectful expression on his face. He smiled and said, Martial Uncle Zhen, this disciple understands your feelings. If there's anything you need this disciple to do, as long as this disciple has the ability to do it, this disciple will definitely do it. Good. 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 Hearing Xiaohua's words, Zhen Yu clapped his hands and said, as expected of a disciple who was born as a loose cultivator. You have a deep understanding of my intentions. Since that's the case, I won't stand on ceremony. Zhen Yu looked at the restrictions around the room that had been activated and said, I called you here this time because I want you to do something for me. And it's extremely easy for you. It's as easy as blowing off dust. Oh. Xiaohua didn't understand. Please instruct me. It's very simple. During the competition, it's as easy as blowing off dust. Zhen Yu transmitted his voice. What? Xiaohua's expression changed. What else was there to say? Joining the fight without any effort, wasn't it just to make him lose to Kun Fian? Hee, martial nephew Xiao. Don't be so surprised. Zhen Yu said with a smile, your cultivation has increased by leaps and bounds, but your foundation is still not enough. Even if you win this competition, are you sure you can defeat all the opponents you meet later on? If there's any mishap, you'll be throwing away the face of my Imperial Thunder sect. For such a big matter, I won't interfere. After that, he looked at Xiaohua's gloomy face and said, it's a good thing that you can get a ranking, but you have to look at the big picture. Your ranking and my Imperial Thunder sect's face, that's secondary. You can't disregard the interests of the Imperial Thunder sect's disciples just because of your own personal interests. My Imperial Thunder sect took you in and gave you cultivation methods, pills, and a place for you to cultivate. At the crucial moment, you should make some concessions for my Imperial Thunder sect. This is what every Imperial Thunder sect disciple should do. It's also the awareness and responsibility of every Imperial Thunder sect disciple. Zhen Yu looked at Xiaohua and said word by word, as a disciple of my Imperial Thunder sect, you should also put the 3 words Imperial Thunder sect in front of Xiaohua's name. Disciple. Disciple understands. Xiaohua took a deep breath and said with a smile, disciple understands. Great. Zhen Yu looked down on Xiaohua. He didn't expect Xiaohua to be so easily intimidated. He praised, martial nephew Xiao is indeed generous. You'll definitely become a great talent in the future. I have high hopes for you. I wouldn't dare. Xiaohua bowed and said, however, this disciple's cultivation foundation is shallow. My current cultivation level is still okay, but when it comes to building my foundation, it will definitely be very difficult. Therefore, this disciple is still very concerned about that reliance pill. As expected of a rogue cultivator. Greedy. Zhen Yu sneered in his heart. However, he said, martial nephew Xiao, this borrowing pill is not an easy thing. Let's not talk about whether you can defeat Kun Fian. Even if you win, there are still 2 experts behind you. It'll be difficult for you to enter the top 8. Moreover, to be honest, I don't have the borrowing pill. Even if I want to give it to you, I can't. Then it's a little difficult. Xiaohua stretched out his hand and smiled apologetically. Disciples saw that during the Feather Immortal gathering, some disciples were even willing to throw away their lives for the sake of building their foundation. Disciple might also do something unexpected for the sake of this immunity pill. Zhen Yu frowned and thought for a while. He patted his storage bag and took out a jade bottle. He said, I have a building foundation pill here. I think you can use it in the future. Xiaohua didn't take it. He smiled and said, when master and senior brother met, he already gave me a building foundation pill. I don't think I can use it. Martial uncle, if you have any cultivation techniques or the recipe for the borrowing pill, you can show it to me. Martial nephew Xiao. Zhen Yu sneered, this old man called you here only to reason with you, to compare the righteousness of the Imperial Thunder sect with your petty profits. If you don't want to listen and insist on acting recklessly, this old man won't be able to stop you. This. Xiaohua thought for a while and nodded. My cultivation base is shallow. 1 building foundation pill won't be useful. How about 3? Snobbish person. As expected, this is a blatant bargaining. Zhen Yu cursed in his heart. He patted his hand and took out 2 more jade bottles. He threw them in front of Xiaohua. Xiaohua hesitated. He didn't want to take them. Xiaohua, if you don't want them, Zhen Yu said angrily. I want them, I want them. Xiaohua took the 3 jade bottles with a wave of his sleeve. He cupped his hands and said, Martial uncle, if there is nothing else, I will go now. The competition is about to start. I still have to effortlessly compete with senior sister Kun. Yes, there is nothing else. You can go now. Zhen Yu waved his sleeve and removed the restriction on the room. Xiaohua walked out of the room expressionlessly. Chapter 1634. He actually wants this young master to lose to Kun Fian. His grandmother, if this young master can't pass the second round, does he think he can? Xiaohua silently cursed in his heart, is he just trying to get a good ranking? What's the use of that thing? I didn't intend to do anything. If it weren't for the excuse pill, I would have admitted defeat as soon as I got on the stage. I still have some time before I reach the foundation establishment stage. The excuse pill can only increase my chances by 30%, so it probably won't be of much use. I'll take advantage of the situation and get 3 foundation establishment pills for free. It's not a bad deal. Alas, 30% chance of reaching the foundation establishment stage. Xiaohua had never received any guidance from orthodox cultivators since he was young. How could he understand the meaning of 30%? If it were any other disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect, even if they had to give in to Zhen Yu, the price of giving in would be at least 10 foundation establishment pills. Of course, among all the disciples participating in the Feather Immortal Assembly, only Xiaohua, a disciple with no background, could be given such an assignment by Zhen Yu. As for the others, he had to think about it carefully and make a balance between the Earth Thunder Palace and the other Thunder Palaces. When Xiaohua arrived at the square, he saw 16 slightly larger illusory arrays in the air. The 16 large illusory arrays were lined up in a row, and there were many disciples of the Taiqing sect and disciples of other sects participating in the Feather Immortal Assembly. At this time, the illusory arrays were different from the previous ones. Not only were they 10 times larger than before, but the light shields outside the illusory arrays obviously had a magnifying effect. Except for a few of the light shields, which were still overflowing with 5 colors, only 2 names kept flashing on them. The other light shields clearly showed the scene of 2 people fighting inside the illusory arrays. Quick, Xiaohua, hurry up. You'll be forced to forfeit in 15 minutes. Xiaohua's figure had just appeared on the square when the voices of Sun Shu, Li Xiaoxiao, and Qian Diheng sounded. The 3 of them were anxious. Seeing their expressions, Xiaohua's cold heart was slightly moved. He quickly stepped forward and cupped his hands, saying, I have some trivial matters to attend to. Sorry. Qian Diheng looked at Xiaohua and said in a low voice, I thought you couldn't get out. How could that be? Xiaohua faintly smiled. Stop talking, hurry up and go in. Sun Shu pointed his finger at one of the illusory arrays. Xiaohua's name was on it, and it flickered slightly. Where is senior sister Kun? Have they already gone in? That's right. Li Xiaoxiao was also a little anxious. Xiaohua was escorted to the illusory array by the crowd. Xiaohua took out his talisman and activated his magic power, throwing himself into the illusory array. The 5 colors on the illusory array flashed and the 5 colors on the light barrier disappeared. On top of the orange-colored volcano, Xiaohua and Kun Fian stood facing each other. Senior sister Li, who do you think will win? Sun Shu looked at the 2 and couldn't help but ask. Naturally it's Xiaohua. Li Xiaoxiao said very calmly. I think so too. Sun Shu heaved a sigh of relief and agreed. Qian Diheng glanced at the 2 and transmitted his voice, I don't think so. If something unexpected happens later, don't be surprised. Li Xiaoxiao and Sun Shu were a little shocked. They unconsciously looked at each other and thoughtfully looked at the light barrier. They saw Xiaohua standing in front of Kun Fian with his arms crossed and coldly smiled, Senior sister Kun, little brother greets you. Good, junior brother Xiao, please show mercy. Kun Fian's expression was normal, the panic from before had long disappeared. With a clap of her hand, a string of jade beads like magic artifacts was taken out by her. Activating her magic power, the beads one by one flew into the air. The beads were of different colors and released different lights. Xiaohua saw this and sighed slightly. He also clapped his hands and the black dust flew into the air. Xiaohua's face had an indescribable smile as he said, "Senior sister Kun, little brother is going to attack." Kun Fian's expression changed slightly and nodded, "Junior brother Xiao, please." Okay. Xiaohua activated the black dust and a 1 qi wide yellow light pillar flew out from the black dust and directly covered Kun Fian. Kun Fian also activated the string of jade beads, and as it spun, it blocked above his head. Shwa! The light beam scattered down, and the grains of sand swarmed onto the string of jade beads. The string of jade beads flickered with endless brilliance, and began to rotate even more violently. In an instant, a powerful suction force was emitted, and the light beam was actually sucked into the string of jade beads, disappearing without a trace. The suction force of the string of jade beads was indeed strong, but to Xiaohua, his magic power was still not enough. He activated the black dust and easily rushed out. Xiaohua could even split the light pillar of the black dust into several parts and attack Kun Fian separately. Of course, wasn't this just a show? Xiaohua's face showed a look of surprise. He pointed with his finger and the black dust's brilliance immediately retracted and flew in a semicircle in the air and back into Xiaohua's hand. Senior sister Kun, your magic power is profound and far from what I can compare to. Since we are all from the same sect and we still have to face the disciples of other sects in the second round, I can only admit defeat. I hope that senior sister Kun can win in the first round and take first place. Xiaohua kept the black dust and bowed as he said. Yes, since junior brother Xiao is so focused on the big picture, I won't be unreasonable. I will definitely carry junior brother Zhao's hopes and the hopes of all the disciples of the same sect and charge into the top 8. Kun Fian didn't dare to keep the string of jade beads and only stood in the air and bowed in return. Xiaohua had a faint smile on his face and glanced at the string of jade beads that were still shining brightly. He activated his flying technique and left the illusion array. Just as Xiaohua left the illusion array released a red light and there was also the sound of music. On the light screen, Kun Fian's name appeared and after a few flashes, it disappeared. Looking at the huge mirror in the air, Kun Fian's name in the second round of squares was shining. Ah! It's over just like that. Xiao Chang's disciples, who wanted to watch a good show, were all dumbfounded. But soon after, everyone came to their senses. What could they say? Their mouths were mumbling, some were cursing and some were regretful. They dispersed. There were still 15 battles to the side, enough for them to watch. How is it? Qian Diheng looked at the gloomy Sun Shu and Li Xiaoxiao and transmitted his voice, "Do you feel very surprised?" "AI, there is nothing surprising." Li Xiaoxiao shook her head, "I should have thought of it long ago." Sun Shu felt a burst of sadness for no reason and forced a smile. "Don't want to think like that, but the truth is like this." Qian Diheng said and pointed at Xiaohua who flew out, "But I don't see this guy's depressed look." Sure enough, Xiaohua who flew out of the illusion array was as calm as water, without any emotions or annoyance. Junior brother Xiao. Sun Shu didn't know what to say but still called out, "A loss is a loss, it's nothing, there is still a next time, haha, I lost?" Xiaohua said with a smile, then looked at the crowd and said, "Everyone, let's have fun here. I gained some insights from the battle just now, and I will go back to the quiet room to cultivate. If there is nothing special, can you call me after the battle in the Feather Immortal Assembly is over?" Fellow Taoist Xiao, are you okay? Sun Shu was a bit worried. Xiaohua didn't look cold like before. Even Li Xiaoxiao was a bit concerned. "That's right, junior brother Xiao, let's watch the other battles, maybe you can gain some insights." "Ha, I really gained some insights, goodbye." Xiaohua cupped his hands and quickly walked out of the square. Looking at Xiaohua's back that wasn't depressed at all, even Qian Diheng was a bit surprised. Maybe he can gain more by giving up than by not giving up. But, what is better than the reliance pill? Not far away, Zhenyu smiled and looked at the two disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect with satisfaction. Zhenyu, why did the battle between Xiaohua and Kun Fian end so quickly? Behind Zhenyu, Zhen Qing's surprised voice sounded. Martial uncle, Xiaohua only tested Kun Fian's strength and felt that he couldn't win, so he gave up. I think he didn't want to waste Kun Fian's spiritual energy because of his useless battle. Zhenyu smiled apologetically. This Xiaohua has a good view of the big picture, as expected of a responsible disciple. Is that so? Zhen Qing didn't understand. That is the reliance pill. Every disciple who wants to build their foundation wants it, isn't he tempted? I don't know, maybe it's because he is still in the middle of the 12th level of qi refining. Zhenyu explained, he is still quite far away from building his foundation, so he gave this opportunity to a disciple who needs it more. Noble character and unquestionable integrity. Haha, Zhen Qing's face showed an indescribable expression. Zhenyu smiled and pointed. Qian Mo is over there, and he seems to have the upper hand. Shall I accompany Martial Uncle to take a look? Good, I want to see the prowess of the Imperial Thunder sect's disciples. Zhen Qing clapped her hands and smiled. Not to mention that everyone was watching from the square and was impressed by the brilliant techniques of the disciples in the illusion array. Xiaohua returned to his meditation room and activated the restriction. He took out the golden puppet and released his Buddhist awareness. After looking at it carefully for a moment, a trace of astonishment appeared on his face. He thought to himself, this great Vajra Dharma body's cultivation method is really weird. It is actually a method that I have never thought of before, using pain to stimulate the body and train the Dharma body. Is this the Buddhist sect's Zongi forbearance? But from the cultivation level of this technique, I seem to have reached the 3rd level of this technique out of the 9 levels. This seems to be related to the fire marrow flame crystal's flame that I absorbed previously. Thinking of the 130 million mysterious dots in his body, Xiaohua had a headache. This thing must be very useful, but he had no idea how to cultivate it. Perhaps the next time he has the chance to absorb the fire marrow flame crystal, he would try using this great strength Vajra Dharma body's cultivation method. Soon after, Xiaohua put away the golden puppet, and with a flip of his hand, he took out the jade slip containing the cloud-suppressing seal. He immersed his divine sense into it and began to read it carefully. Chapter 1635. Xiaohua looked at the jade slip again and again until he confirmed that he had completely memorized it. Only then did he put the jade slip into his space and then closed his eyes to think. After a long time, Xiaohua waved his hand and the small cloud-suppressing seal flew into the air. Looking at this tattered little thing that didn't have any splendor, Xiaohua thought to himself, if this thing was placed aside, no matter how I look at it, it's impossible for me to treat it as a magic treasure. Thinking, he stretched out his finger and tried to force a drop of blood out. However, after a few tries, the blood could not flow out from his finger. Huh? What's going on? Xiaohua was very puzzled. It seemed that a few years ago in Zhenlei Palace's Jade Archive Hall, he had easily forced out a drop of blood. Suddenly, Xiaohua remembered the record of the great strength King Kong Dharma body. Could it be? I's body is really like the Dharma body, invulnerable. Thinking of this, he waved his hand and took out the black iron needle. Then, he gently pierced it into his ring finger. Sure enough, the black iron needle only touched the surface of the finger. It was as if it touched an extremely hard iron plate and could not pierce any further. Ha, wonderful, wonderful. Xiaohua almost jumped up and thought, this is just the 3rd level of cultivation. If I can cultivate all 9 levels of the great strength King Kong Dharma body, wouldn't I not be afraid of any magic weapon? But, if even the black iron needle can't pierce the finger, how can this cloud-suppressing seal be used as a blood sacrifice? Xiaohua was a little worried. He then picked up the black iron needle and pierced it into his finger. Fortunately, he finally squeezed out a drop of blood. Xiaohua breathed a sigh of relief and pointed his finger. That drop of blood flew into the air. Xiaohua's hands flicked out a series of seals, not into the drop of blood, but into the drop of blood. Along with the seals, that drop of blood gradually elongated and thinned. Finally, it formed a shape similar to the cloud-suppressing seal. Go! Xiaohua pointed his finger and the cloud-suppressing seal floating beside him flew into the drop of blood. Then, Xiaohua's hands continued to cast seals and that drop of blood slowly soaked into the cloud-suppressing seal. As Xiaohua's drop of blood entered, another drop of dirty blood was gradually forced out from the other side. Xiaohua stopped his spell and waved his hand. A wisp of true samadhi fire flew out and burned the bloodstains. Immediately, the bloodstains disappeared without a trace. Immediately after, Xiaohua swallowed a soul-gathering pill and closed his eyes. As he circulated his energy, he began to imbue different techniques into the cloud-suppressing seal. Under Xiaohua's refinement, the cloud-suppressing seal slowly began to churn in the air, gradually revealing traces of brilliance. 1 day, 2 days, all the way until the 5th day of the second phase of the Feather Immortal Gathering, Xiaohua remained in seclusion, refining the cloud-suppressing seal in his quiet room. At this moment, there was only a huge illusory formation left in the plaza. Within it, there were 2 cultivators fighting for first place in the Feather Immortal Gathering. One of them was Xuanyan School's disciple, Zhuoqing Yuan, who had long reached the late stage of the 12th layer of qi refining. The other was also someone Xiaohua was familiar with, Yun Guicheng, who had recently reached the peak of the 12th layer of qi refining. At this moment, the battle between the two was nearing its end. Both of their faces were pale. It was obvious that they had used up a lot of their magic power. Zhuoqing Yuan had a flying sword above his head. It was swallowing and spitting out a sword ray that was half a foot long. It stared at Yun Guicheng like a spiritual snake. On the other hand, the magic tool above Yun Guicheng's head was an emerald green thing that looked like a bamboo tube. At this moment, it was also floating in the air, eager to attack. Go! Zhuoqing Yuan roared angrily. The flying sword suddenly flew out and pierced towards Yun Guicheng's chest with incomparable speed. Yun Guicheng did not hesitate. He swiped his index and middle fingers in the air. With a peng sound, a ray of brilliance like water spurted out from the bamboo tube. Under Yun Guicheng's command, the brilliance blocked the front of the bamboo tube. Seeing that the flying sword was about to pierce the brilliance, Zhuoqing Yuan's 2 index fingers suddenly separated. The flying sword suddenly split into 2. It went around the brilliance on both sides and pierced towards Yun Guicheng's waist from the side. This sudden change was certainly out of everyone's expectations. However, Yun Guicheng was not slow despite his shock. He patted his waist and a belt that was 4 fingers wide appeared from his waist. Then, countless runes flew out from the belt and spun in front of the flying sword. When the flying sword came into contact with these runes, it was as if it had sunk into a quagmire. It could only stab 3 inches into the belt. It was impossible for it to stab half an inch further. When Zhuoqing Yuan saw this, he gritted his teeth slightly. He patted his hand and a shiny spiritual talisman appeared in his hand. He urged his magic power and pasted it on his forehead. Roar! Zhuoqing Yuan roared. On Zhuoqing Yuan's forehead, an inch-long horn gradually appeared. A faint outline gradually appeared on his arms and back. Giant spiritual talisman. The people watching the battle were shocked. This spiritual talisman was indeed powerful, but the magic power required was also very high. Usually, only foundation establishment stage cultivators could support it. Not many qi refinement stage cultivators dared to try it, unless they felt that their magic power was comparable to that of foundation establishment stage cultivators. Zhuoqing Yuan's physical body gradually grew bigger under the effect of the giant spiritual talisman. He was gradually taller than the previous 2. However, what surprised everyone was that Yun Guicheng, who was in front of Zhuoqing Yuan, did not panic at all. He just silently watched the changes in Zhuo Qingyuan's physical body, deep in thought. Seeing that Zhuo Qingyuan's giant spiritual talisman was about to succeed, Yun Guicheng also patted his hand and laughed. Since fellow Zhuo wants to compete with magic power, I will accompany you. As he spoke, a shiny spiritual talisman appeared in his hand and he also pasted it on his body. Roar! With almost the same roar, Yun Guicheng's physical body also began to transform. However, the shape of the transformation was slightly different. This was great. Everyone in the square showed excitement and admiration on their faces. Since both of them had used the giant spirit talisman, then the final battle would be a direct competition of magic power. Whoever had a deeper cultivation and more powerful magic power would be able to create more energy, and that person would be able to defeat the other party. This was a real fight, without the help of any magic tools. Fight! Zhuo Qingyuan waited for the giant spiritual talisman to fully take effect. He shouted impatiently and waved his fist. His huge body rushed towards Yun Guicheng. Although Yun Guicheng was half a step slower, his giant spiritual talisman was different. The huge beast transformed from his physical body was slightly smaller than Zhuo Qingyuan. Seeing Zhuo Qingyuan's fist, which was bigger than a drum, coming towards him, he also raised his fist to meet it. Boom! There was a loud sound. The whole square shook, and everyone's ears hurt from the vibrations. My goodness, how can he be so powerful? Everyone in the square was so shocked that they didn't know what to say. This illusory magic array had one advantage. The images inside the illusory magic array could be seen clearly, but the sound was pitifully soft, almost inaudible. The two transformed giant spirit beasts could actually shake the square outside the illusory magic array. What kind of magical ability was this? However, the people standing at the edge of the square immediately felt that something was wrong. It was as if the tremors and sounds came from behind them. When they inadvertently turned around to look, they saw that the distant pavilion where the Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples lived had already collapsed by now. In the midst of the ruins, Xiaohua, covered in dirt and grime, slowly crawled out of it. Damn it, this cloud-suppressing seal really lives up to its reputation. Xiaohua patted off the dirt on his body. He was both excited and vexed as he thought to himself, this young master was just testing its power a little. How could I accidentally break the restrictions of the quiet room? Oh, no, half of the pavilion? That's right. After Xiaohua successfully refined the cloud-suppressing seal, he very casually patted the wall of his quiet room. It was just a very light pat, there was absolutely no other meaning behind it, really. As a result, the restrictions on the wall were like paper. The wall also collapsed one after another as if it was made of mud. The Taiqing sect's disciple who was on duty in front of the pavilion looked at the embarrassed Xiaohua in a daze. He didn't know whether he should go up and apologize or not. He should ask if it was his doing. Just as Xiaohua made the noise, the result of the battle in the illusion array was also revealed. Yun Zhaocheng suddenly used his elbow to hit the back of Zhuo Qingyuan's neck. Zhuo Qingyuan felt a burst of dizziness. The true qi in his body became slightly sluggish, and his magic power couldn't be transmitted to the giant spirit talisman in time. Zhuo Qingyuan's entire body was like a deflated bubble, rapidly shrinking. The scales on his body also rapidly disappeared. When he returned to his original state, Zhuo Qingyuan's face was pale. He took a medicinal pill, cupped his hands, and said, "Fellow Taoist Yun's magic power is too strong. I can't compare. I admit defeat." Hearing Zhuo Qingyuan's words, Yun Zhaocheng took the giant spirit talisman and gradually returned to his original state. He cupped his hands and said, "Senior Marshal Brother Zhuo intentionally let me win. I don't dare accept it. Forget it. The new generation replaces the old. I am ashamed." As he said that, Zhuo Qingyuan activated his magic card and flew out of the illusion array. He went back to his quiet room. Seeing that the first place of the Feather Immortal Gathering had been decided, everyone was still looking at the collapsed pavilion of the Imperial Thunder Sect strangely. They didn't know what had happened. Well, disciples, it's already dusk. Everyone, go back to your quiet rooms to rest. Tomorrow morning, the Taiching sect will give out rewards to the top few disciples according to the usual practice. Renju was flying in the air again. She said loudly, moreover, the Taiching sect has a surprise for the top 32 disciples tomorrow. There's a surprise tomorrow. What is it? The group of cultivators couldn't help but think of Dao Jing, who had welcomed them here. That cultivator who liked to keep them in suspense. It seemed that tomorrow was the time to break the suspense. As for the collapsed pavilion of the Imperial Thunder sect, the Taiching sect didn't ask too much. After all, Xiaohua was cultivating, and it involved some secrets. Even the disciples of the Taiching sect would occasionally have something like this happen, but it wasn't as loud and imposing as this. Moreover, there were many pavilions in the Bright Realm. They could just find some more. The disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect were cultivating in their new quiet rooms with their eyes closed, waiting for the surprise the next day. Xiaohua was sitting in front of Sun Shu and Qian Diheng, listening to them talking about the excitement of the past few days. Chapter 1636. Since the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect had moved to a new pavilion, they naturally had to change their magic tablets. The Taiching sect disciple who helped them change their magic tablets looked at Xiaohua several times. He himself was the clearest about how solid the restrictions set up in the pavilion were. Xiaohua, a mere qi condensation disciple, was actually able to break the restrictions and even topple half of the pavilion. This method was something he couldn't understand even if he cracked his head. After the Taiching sect disciple left, the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect returned to their quiet rooms. Looking at Qian Diheng's gaze, Xiaohua looked innocent. He waved his hand and said, "Senior brother Qian, don't look at me. I definitely don't know about this matter. It has nothing to do with me." He. Qian Diheng laughed and said, "I didn't say anything. Why are you in such a hurry to explain?" Xiaohua shrugged. When he was about to speak, Sun Shu laughed and said, "At that time, there was only junior brother Xiao in the pavilion. If it has nothing to do with him, no one will believe it. Although I was the only one, but I am also a victim. I really don't know anything." Fine, if it's not you then it's not you. You didn't say anything." Qian Diheng waved his hand and opened the restriction formation of his quiet room. He said, "Junior brother Xiao, senior sister Sun, are you interested in tasting some spiritual fruits in Ai's room?" Looking at Qian Diheng's sincere gaze, Xiaohua was thoughtful. Qian Diheng's cultivation was average. Although he relied on the care of his elders and a defensive magic treasure to come to the Feather Immortal Assembly, from their interactions during this period of time, he was a cultivator with some genuine temperament. He was much more pleasing to the eye than Kun Fian and the others. Therefore, Xiaohua didn't hold back. He cupped his hands and said, "Ai's taste is bland, so I'm a chatterbox." Sun Shu's position in the Sun Thunder Palace might be lower than Qian Diheng's in the Heavenly Thunder Palace, but it wasn't that far off. He also cupped his hands and entered the quiet room. Qian Diheng took out some spiritual fruits from his storage bag. The three of them ate while talking about the competition in the past few days. Just as we expected, Senior Kun Fei Yan Kun's cultivation is limited after all. Even though she tried her best and exhausted all her mana, she still stopped at the second round. As Sun Shu spoke, there was a hint of schadenfreude in his tone. According to Ai, if junior brother Xiao were to go, he would at least reach the third round. Xiaohua didn't say anything. Regarding this matter, since it was already in the past and it was ordered by Zhenyu, he could only pretend that nothing had happened. However, Qian Diheng didn't mention it at all. Senior brother Qian Mo is still the best, actually snatching the 8th place. As expected, Qian Diheng immediately changed the topic. Senior brother Qian Mo is so powerful, yet he's only ranked 8th. Xiaohua felt a little strange. In his opinion, Qian Mo should at least be in the top 4. junior brother Xiao, 8th place is already not bad. Qian Diheng said in a low voice, my Imperial Thunder sect is not at the forefront in the country of Shi's cultivation world. Xuanyan sect, Qiqiao sect, and Shanghua sect are all stronger than us. Even Huanhua sect is not much better than us. Moreover, the cultivation level of our country of Shi is slightly worse than that of Meng country and Lian country. Think about it. In the 13 cultivation countries, my Imperial Thunder sect can only be considered as below average. I heard that in the past, we occasionally got into the top 8, but most of the time, we were ranked 9th or 10th. So, senior brother Qian Mo's 8th place is not bad? Xiao Hua said with a smile. Of course, you didn't see Martial Uncle Zhen Yu's happy face when he saw Qian Mo get 8th place. Sun Shu snorted and said. After listening for a moment, Xiao Hua asked tentatively, then, how is Huanhua sect's result? Huanhua sect. Damn it. Qian Diheng slapped his thigh and shouted, Junior brother Xiao, you missed a lot of exciting things. Xiao Hua's eyes lit up and said anxiously, what? Does Huanhua sect have any powerful disciples? Of course, in this year's Feather Immortal Assembly, Huanhua sect was in the limelight. Qian Diheng gnashed his teeth and said, the strength of the Huanhua sect should be similar to that of my Imperial Thunder sect. According to this poor Taoist's estimation, they should be ranked 9th, 10th, or 7th at most. But, didn't you see? The first place of this Feather Immortal Assembly is actually a disciple of Huanhua sect, and he doesn't look very old. How can he be so powerful? I really don't understand. Sun Shu said angrily. It seemed that she wouldn't be angry if the disciples of Qiqiao sect, Shanghua sect, or Xuanyan school got first place, but Huanhua sect couldn't. Qian Diheng also didn't understand and said in a low voice, listen, usually, the first place of this Feather Immortal Assembly is either Meng country or Lian country. The 3 sects of our country of Shi don't have many chances to take first place, but today, the first 2 places are actually disciples of our country of Shi. This really puzzles me. Seeing that the 2 of them were talking about things that he didn't care about, Xiao Hua was a little anxious and asked, what about the other disciples of Huanhua sect? I'm afraid they didn't have any outstanding performances, right? No, you're wrong. This time, the flower washing sect is really fierce. Besides this guy called Yun Jicheng, there's also someone called Fairy Hongxia. She's also killing everyone. If I hadn't met this Yun Jicheng and given up on my own initiative, the first place might have been Fairy Hongxia. Xiao Hua's eyes lit up, and a faint smile appeared on his face. Although the feelings in his heart were unknown to others, he was happy to hear about her and know that she had succeeded in her cultivation. Sun Shu said again, you don't know, junior brother Xiao, when Red Dawn Fairy went on stage that day, many young disciples cheered for her. That atmosphere. TSK, 90% of the disciples went to watch Red Dawn Fairy's battle. Yes, and 10% of the disciples were female. Qian Diheng blinked and smiled. Sun Shu glanced at Qian Diheng and said, it seems that, some disciples of my Imperial Thunder sect, still wandered around in front of Huanhua sect's pavilion. Tisk, Qian Diheng didn't hide anything and said, there's an old saying among mortals that a gentleman wants a fair and graceful woman. This humble Daoist is handsome and talented, and is also a disciple of the Heavenly Thunder Palace. I am a perfect match for that Fairy Hongxia. Even if I have to ask the sect leader of the Rinsing Flower sect for help, this humble Daoist's backbone will still be strong. Ha ha ha. Sun Shu laughed. It seems that there are many disciples with such thoughts. There's probably one in each of the 13 sects of cultivation. When Qian Diheng heard this, he was a little dejected and said helplessly, that's right. Who asked Fairy Hongxia to fight a few days ago? Her red silk fluttered in the wind, and she looked valiant and formidable. Her methods were amazing, and she was even more beautiful than a celestial being. If she couldn't attract so many disciples, then we male cultivators would be blind. What a pity. Sun Shu said mockingly, her senior brother is the champion of this Feather Immortal gathering, and they're a match made in heaven. I'm afraid you don't have a chance. How can that Yun Jicheng compare to I? I already found out that Yun Jicheng is just a disciple of Su Yanyan's family. His background can't be compared to I. But what if Red Dawn Fairy likes him? Sun Shu said mercilessly. Hearing this, Xiaohua's face turned black and he wanted to leave several times. When the two finally stopped, he quickly asked, "Right, what's the surprise tomorrow? Fellow Taoists, do you have any news?" "Who knows? It has nothing to do with us." Qian Diheng quickly waved his hand. "It's already said that it's for the top 32 disciples. Who would think more?" Then, he said to Sun Shu, "Right, senior sister Sun, what do you think I should do to attract Red Dawn Fairy's attention?" Xiaohua snorted and stood up. "Senior brothers, you can think about it slowly here. I'm going back to rest. I still have to wait for the Taiqing sect's surprise tomorrow morning." "Hey! Junior brother Xiao." Sun Shu stood up and wanted to chase after him, but was stopped by Qian Diheng. "Senior sister Sun, give me an idea. If I can beat that Yun Jicheng, wouldn't I also win glory for my Imperial Thunder sect?" Listening to Qian Diheng's words, Xiaohua had mixed feelings. He slowly walked out of the quiet room, and then out of the pavilion. It was already dusk, and the setting sun was like a fire that dyed half the sky red. The dark red sunlight shone on Xiaohua's young face, revealing a hint of coldness. Xiaohua's curved eyes were looking at a pavilion not far from here. In front of the pavilion, there were more than 10 young disciples scattered. Although they were all looking in different directions and didn't seem to have anything to do with the pavilion, their eyes were all glancing at the entrance of the pavilion from time to time. Could it be that this pavilion belongs to those two sword cultivators? These disciples are still drooling over that magic treasure? Xiaohua was a little confused. But at this moment, a Taiqing sect disciple came out from inside and said loudly, "Fairy Hongxia replied to everyone. There is still a competition tomorrow, so she can't meet everyone. Please forgive her." After saying that, the Taiqing sect disciple went in. Xiaohua's face became even more unsightly. He snorted from his nose, stomped his feet, and turned around to enter the pavilion. Not to mention that Xiaohua had returned to his new quiet room to cultivate. In another pavilion, Zhang Yutong and Zhang Yuhe were respectfully sitting across from Ren Zhu. Zhang Yutong handed over a storage pouch, only to hear Zhang Yutong say, "This is the thing I told Senior before, please check it." Ren Zhu took it, opened it, and put it away. At the same time, she handed over another storage pouch and said with a smile, "You two little friends are really good at scheming. I had no choice but to give you this profound Yin spirit grass." Zhang Yutong reached out to take it and put it away very carefully. "Zhang Yu," he said with a smile, "that is Senior's care and concern. We sisters are very clear about it. I'm sure the two of you have gained a lot over the past few days, right? It's all right. There are a lot of miscellaneous things, but they are still not as generous as your sect." Zhang Yutong said with a smile, "We have already dealt with the matter. Today, we would like to bid farewell to Senior. Tomorrow is the last day of the Feather Immortal Gathering. There is still a competition tomorrow. Don't the two of you want to participate?" Zhang Yuhi's eyes lit up. She said, "Yes, yes. It's not easy for us to come." Chapter 1637. Sister. Zhang Yutong looked at her and said, "You are already in the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm. Why are you fighting with a disciple who is only in the qi refining realm? Don't you feel ashamed? Also, if we don't leave now, when will we?" Then, she bowed and asked Deming, "Is the Hao territory peaceful these days?" Deming knew what Zhang Yutong was asking about and nodded. The disciples of the 3 kingdoms and 13 sects of the cultivation world are all fighting in Hao territory. The whereabouts of the two of you have not been leaked. Please don't worry. Thank you, Senior Deming. My sister and I will definitely report this to our sect leader. We will definitely repay your kindness. You are our guests. We are just doing our duty as hosts. Deming said with a smile. Then, Zhang Yutong and Zhang Yuha bowed and said goodbye. Under Deming's escort, they left the Hao territory quietly without attracting anyone's attention. The next morning, all the disciples gathered in the plaza. Renju followed the rules of the Feather Immortal Assembly and distributed the rewards to the disciples. Even though Xiaohua had entered the top 32, he didn't have any chance of winning. He didn't even get a single pill. After giving the last magic weapon to Yun Jicheng, Renju said with a smile, "When you came to the Hao territory, I told you why the Feather Immortal Assembly was held here. It is related to an item in the Hao territory. This item is also the reward for the last battle of the Feather Immortal Assembly." When the disciples heard this, they looked at the high platform behind Renju. The high platform was the same as it was a few days ago. No divine thoughts could penetrate it, so they couldn't see what it was. Now, it is time to reveal the mystery. Renju pointed with a smile and said, "This item fell from the sky a few years ago. It is right here." As he spoke, he made a hand seal and a blue brilliance hit the high platform. The high platform melted like an iceberg and gradually revealed what was inside. A sword embryo that was 3 feet long and as thick as a fist was inserted in the middle of the high platform. Ah! Prajna! Seeing this familiar sword embryo, Xiaohua couldn't help but think of the name of this sword embryo. At the same time, Xiaohua's mind exploded. This Prajna heavy sword was originally mine. This heavy sword fell from the heavens, then Didn't I also fall from the heavens? Where? Where did I come from? And where did I go? As the Prajna heavy sword was revealed, Renju continued to introduce it. This thing is a sword embryo. It should be a sword embryo. However, this thing was different from ordinary sword embryos. The strangest thing is that this sword embryo can't be controlled by divine thoughts. And it is shockingly heavy. Wow! Everyone in the square began to whisper to each other. Fellow Taoist Renju, according to what you said, isn't this a demonic tool? Xiong Fei of the Washing Flowers sect was very proud at this time and said with a smile. Renju shook her head and said, "The first disciple who found this thing also had the same idea. Our humble sect leader thought that it was a demonic weapon from the war between immortals and devils that fell into our humble sect. But, the weight of this sword embryo is truly shocking. It is much heavier than any demonic weapon that our humble sect has seen. Secondly, although demonic weapons can't be controlled by divine thoughts, they can be placed in storage bags. After this thing is placed in a storage bag, the storage bag's space formation will gradually be crushed by the sword embryo." Ah! All the disciples were surprised. After our humble sect's refiner's appraisal, the quality of this sword embryo is not something from the Dawn Rain continent. Moreover, this sword embryo can't be tempered by ordinary refining methods. There should be a very peculiar method to refine it into a sword. And not a flying sword. After all, this refined sword cannot be controlled by divine thoughts. Then what is its use? All the disciples were rather suspicious. As if she heard the disciples' doubts, Renju said with a smile, "I don't know how to use this thing, and neither do the elders of our Taiqing sect. However, according to our Taiqing sect's immortal Yuluan's guess, this thing must be an immortal item from outside the heavens. If any fated disciple obtains it, he might be able to find the true meaning of the great Tao from it." Ah! All the disciples were pleasantly surprised. Although they also felt that Renju's words were somewhat unreliable, if it was really so precious, why would it be placed here? Moreover, why would it be given to others so generously? However, when they thought about what Renju said, there was a trace of possibility. They could not help but feel a fire in their hearts. This sword embryo has been in our Taiqing sect's bright realm for a long time. Many disciples have also come to subdue it, but in the end, no one was fated to obtain it. When our humble sect's master Qing Su saw that the Feather Immortal Assembly was being held in our Taiqing sect, he opened up a good door and held the assembly in the bright realm. If any fellow cultivator is fated to obtain this sword embryo, it will be considered a good deed for our Taiqing sect. What is considered fate? Shanghua Sect's Li Mingqing asked. Renju pointed at the sword embryo. First of all, you must have the ability to stand out from the 32 disciples. Secondly, you must be able to take this sword embryo away. Fellow Renju, please enlighten us. What is considered to have the ability? Among the 32 disciples, apart from our Taiqing sect's disciples, all of them have entered the illusory array and fought with each other. The time limit is the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. If any disciple can remain in the illusory array until the end, that disciple has the ability. As long as he picks up this sword embryo will be fated to him. What if after the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, many disciples are still in the illusory array? Haha, naturally, there won't be any disciples fated to obtain this sword embryo. Renju smiled. This battle is similar to the second round. There is no time limit to withdraw. As long as you feel that your life is in danger, you can immediately activate your magic tablet and withdraw from the illusory array. Of course, if any disciple insists on not withdrawing, they will be responsible for their own lives. That's good. Everyone agreed. Clap. Clap. Renju clapped her hands and activated her magic power. A huge illusory array emerged from the high platform and wrapped around the sword embryo. Disciples, the time it takes for an incense stick to burn has already begun. If we don't enter the illusory array, when will we? Renju shouted. With a flick of her sleeve, a lit incense stick flew into the air. Go! Xiaohua and the others lightly reprimanded. Their figures flew out and entered the illusory array. When they entered the illusory array, they saw that their surroundings were much more spacious. However, everyone was gathered in a nearby area. It was very obvious that the disciples of Shi, Meng, and Lian were clearly divided. Each of them surrounded each other and looked at each other covetously. Because they were restraining each other, the three groups of people didn't dare to move casually. The others weren't in a hurry, but Xiaohua was. He knew that this sword embryo was his and he was determined to obtain it. Seeing that time was passing by in this confrontation, after the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, he wouldn't have the opportunity to obtain the sword embryo so easily. Thus, Xiaohua whispered to Qian Mo who was beside him, "Senior brother Qian, this kind of confrontation won't have any results. What do you think of this little brother going to sneak attack the Meng disciples?" "Great, the Meng cultivators are few. As long as you make a move, I will also release my magic weapon. Let's beat the Meng cultivators out first." Qian Mo was very strange. This junior brother who usually didn't rush to the front was suddenly anxious. However, he was also willing to have someone take the lead. Okay. Hearing this, Xiaohua flew to the front of the Shi cultivators. Everyone was surprised to see Xiaohua, who had the lowest cultivation, fly out. The Meng and Lian disciples activated their magic power and were slightly on guard. Xiaohua also didn't hesitate. As soon as he flew out from the crowd, he immediately rushed towards the Meng disciples. "Humph, you're courting death." The Meng disciples who didn't know the details sneered. A few disciples in front of them activated their magic weapons and attacked Xiaohua. Xiaohua was afraid that others wouldn't make a move. Seeing someone use their magic weapon, he was overjoyed. He clapped his hands and took out dozens of top-grade fireball talismans. Like a heavenly maiden scattering flowers, he threw them at the Meng disciples. He immediately flew to the side in the direction of the Lian kingdom, as if he was trying to avoid the Dharma artifact. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Dozens of fireball talismans sounded. The Meng disciples couldn't stand still and revealed a gap. The Shi disciples were already prepared. Seeing such a gap, how could they not add insult to injury? Everyone took advantage of the chaos and activated their magic weapons, throwing them in the direction of the fireball talismans. The Shi disciples knew how to add insult to injury, how could the Lian disciples not know? In particular, Xiaohua's fireball talisman had provoked quite a few people. Quite a few magic treasures were chasing after Xiaohua. Xiaohua was wandering around the Ripple State, and magic treasures were also flying around the Ripple State. How could the Ripple State's disciples calm down? In an instant, the whole scene went out of control. All the disciples no longer cared about anything else. On one hand, they protected themselves. On the other hand, they used all kinds of methods to mercilessly attack the unfamiliar disciples. Xiaohua, who had successfully instigated a fight, immediately brought out Jingchen. That earthy yellow brilliance firmly protected him. Then, he reached out his hand and took out the devil spear from the space. His figure swayed repeatedly, leaving behind a string of afterimages. His figure flew back and forth among the crowd in a very natural and unrestrained manner. Xiaohua flew quickly. The space of this illusion array was not big, and it was abnormally chaotic. Xiaohua was like a fish in water. In just a moment, he had already successfully attacked 4 disciples. These disciples were forced to activate their magic tablets in a hurry and escape far away. Ah! The disciples in the square were surprised at this time. No one would have thought that the disciple with the lowest cultivation would actually have such methods. Rumble, Xiaohua took advantage of the chaos and shot out a string of fireball talismans. Similarly, the other disciples were also red-eyed. All kinds of fireball talismans, icicle talismans, confinement talismans, and so on were thrown out without any regard for their lives. Countless explosions, countless flashes of brilliance, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the entire illusion array was scattered in an instant. Hua, a waterfall-like fiery light fell from the sky, pouncing towards Xiaohua. Xiaohua's figure twisted, and he flew forward slightly, dodging the fiery light. However, the 2 disciples of the rippling country beside him were extremely anxious. The defensive magic tools in their hands only lasted for a moment before their brilliance dimmed. Seeing that the fiery light was about to burn their bodies, the 2 of them helplessly activated their magic tablets, disappearing from their original spot. Just as the 2 people left, not far from them, a dazzling brilliance flashed. A flying sword blossomed with 10,000 rays of brilliance and pierced towards the direction of the flame. Chapter 1638. Chaos, Great Chaos, Chaos. This was the current situation inside the illusion array. In the beginning, the disciples of each country were still gathered together, united against the outside. However, countless yellow talismans and numerous magic weapons were flying around in the air, throwing the previous formation into chaos. The disciples of each country were mixed together, and the disciples of each sect were also mixed together. No one could see who was who. Seeing a disciple coming over, without hesitation, they activated their magic weapons and flew over, regardless of whether this disciple was familiar or not. Every disciple inside the illusion array had their own divine senses. Their divine senses were mixed together, and it was also very messy. Xiaohua saw a flying sword flying toward him from afar. It seemed to be aimed at him. He released his Buddhist sense and saw a disciple of the Nanming sect behind him. The disciple was holding a basin-shaped magic weapon. A light blue light was emitting from the basin-shaped magic weapon. The light blue light condensed into fist-sized balls and flew toward a disciple of the Utopia faction. Therefore, Xiaohua was not in a hurry to dodge. When the flying sword was indeed close, his 2 feet slightly staggered, dodging the flying sword in an instant. Naturally, that Nanming sect disciple also had divine senses to protect his body, and had already seen his surroundings clearly. However, when Xiaohua dodged the flying sword, he did not have time to react. That flying sword was 3 inches wide and 1 foot long. It was surrounded by flames and was aggressive. Before it could pierce him, that Nanming sect disciple felt that the magic power on the flying sword was profound. At this time, it was already too late to dodge. The Nanming sect disciple had no choice but to inject his magic power into a magic tablet that he had already prepared. A milky white brilliance descended from the sky and quickly covered him, blocking the flying sword outside. As the brilliance disappeared, the Nanming sect disciple was also out of the illusion array. Another one down. Xiao Hua sneered. He activated his witchcraft dust, and a strand of yellow brilliance was instantly released, piercing towards the Xian music sect disciple who sent out the flying sword. The Xian music sect disciple was a bit far away. Seeing Xiao Hua attack, he was not nervous. He clapped his hands, and a faint brilliance appeared on his body, as if he had a protective magic weapon. Unfortunately, before Xiao Hua's witchcraft dust could attack, the figure of a Shanghua sect disciple who was sent flying blocked the brilliance of the witchcraft dust. Ouch! The disciple turned pale with fright. He no longer cared about anything else and similarly activated his Dharma card to escape. Wu Chen's attack was slightly blocked by this Shanghua sect's cultivator, causing his speed to decrease. Xiao Hua wanted to look for the flying sword sect's disciple who attacked him just now, but he was already blocked by someone else. Xiao Hua was just about to take out a fireball talisman when all of a sudden, a slender rhombus-shaped magic artifact suddenly flew out from under his feet. It actually dodged his Buddhist sense and divine sense, and obliquely stabbed towards his calf. Ah! Isn't this a black iron needle? Xiao Hua was greatly shocked. Without thinking, his entire figure suddenly retreated. With a loud bang, Xiao Hua's back unexpectedly bumped into another cultivator. Xiao Hua's strength was great, ah! In an instant, he knocked that disciple upside down, and Xiao Hua's flying speed was only slightly affected. Immediately, he changed direction and used the hibernating thunder escape to fly away. That black iron needle-like magic artifact chased after Xiao Hua, but it couldn't catch up to him. It immediately changed direction again, and stabbed towards the disciple who was knocked down by Xiao Hua. That disciple was a bit dizzy. He wanted to activate his Dharma card, but he was somewhat reluctant. In this moment of hesitation, the magic artifact had already quietly dodged his divine sense, and stabbed into the disciple's back. Ah! That disciple angrily shouted, but it was already too late. This magic artifact was even more insidious than the black iron needle. The yellow talisman protecting his body only shook slightly before it was pierced, and it pierced right through his chest. When that disciple's corpse fell from midair, that needle-like magic artifact flashed again, and flew into the crowd of disciples, disappearing without a trace. Seeing that a cultivator had fallen, the crowd who still had a trace of hope in their hearts no longer dared to be negligent. They either used all their magic power to shoot out their magic artifacts, or used their Dharma cards to escape from the illusion array in a panic. In just a short moment, there were less than 10 disciples left in the illusion array. Ha, fellow Taoists, do you not want to withdraw? A very scholarly voice rang out. Xiao Hua frowned and looked over. He saw that about 100 feet in front of him was a handsome man. There was an emerald green bamboo tube magic tool above his head. It emitted an emerald green brilliance and emitted a light barrier from top to bottom. Not only did it cover the man, but it also protected a female cultivator with skin whiter than snow and red clothes like a rainbow next to him. In the female cultivator's hand, there was a red silk ribbon that was like a flood dragon and spirit snake, cruising up and down her body. Yun Gui Chong. Xiao Hua's eyes narrowed slightly, and a sour and ruthless feeling arose from the bottom of his heart. Yun Gui Chong pointed with his finger, and smiled, "This item is something that I desire. Just now, I and my junior sister have already sent away several fellow Taoists. If you are tactful, I will accept this kindness. If not, ha, just pretend that I didn't say that." After hearing Yun Guicheng's words, among the crowd, several people looked at each other, including Zhuo Qingyuan. He knew that he was not Yun Guicheng's opponent, and besides, Fairy Hong Xia was beside Yun Guicheng. Therefore, Zhuo Qingyuan used his Dharma card to withdraw from the illusion array. He was really not interested in this strange sword embryo. Seeing that Zhuo Qingyuan took the lead to withdraw, the remaining Xuanyan school disciple also withdrew. Then, except for Xiao Hua and two other cultivators, the other disciples all left the illusion array. Of the two cultivators, one was short with an ordinary face, and the other had a square face with rough and dark skin. Fellow Taoist Xiao. The short cultivator cupped his hands and said, I am Zhang Xian from the Utopia faction, and this is I's junior brother, Yang Fangcheng. I have seen fellow Taoist Xiao's fights twice, and I admire you very much. If fellow Taoist Xiao joins forces with I's junior brother, you won't be afraid of these two fellow Taoists from the Huanhua sect. Hearing this, Xiao Hua was slightly disdainful in his heart. You 2 against 2 is just right. Why are you pulling me? If I help you wait for those two, they will be dealt with by those two next. Why should I interfere? Seeing that Xiao Hua was silent, Zhang Xian didn't say anything more. He pointed to the half-moon-shaped magic weapon floating in mid-air and said with a smile, since that's the case, my Utopia faction's disciple will meet your Huanhua sect's disciple. As soon as he finished speaking, the half-moon-shaped magic weapon whistled and spun as it flew towards Yun Guicheng's chest. His junior brother, Yang Fangcheng, didn't say anything. He also pointed his finger, and a golden bead spun as it flew towards Yun Guicheng. Good. Yun Guicheng stood up and shouted, look at my magic weapon. The bamboo tube covering the two of them suddenly enlarged, and the splendor sprinkled down turned into a flat light curtain, blocking himself and Hong Xia Fairy. The remaining half of the bamboo tube, under Yun Guicheng's control, turned into a patch of green bamboo and flew towards the two magic weapons. Zhang Xian's magic weapon circled and flew close to Yun Guicheng. Numerous half-moon-shaped splendors were emitted from the magic weapon and hit the bamboos. As the bamboos dissipated, the half-moon-shaped splendors also disappeared. However, Yun Guicheng had a large number of bamboos, and many of them were still flying towards the two of them. At this moment, Yang Fangcheng's bead also arrived. Under the control of his magic power, the bead expanded to a diameter of 1 foot. In an instant, it swept away the remaining bamboos, broke through a golden channel, and hit Yun Guicheng's defense directly. At this moment, the disciples in the square understood the situation clearly. Yun Guicheng was indeed the champion of the feather immortal meat. His magic power was more profound than either Zhang Xian or Yang Fangcheng of the Utopia faction, but it was still weaker than the two of them combined. However, Hong Xia Fairy of the Huanhua sect hadn't made her move yet. Sure enough, when the 1-foot bead hit the light curtain and stretched it a lot, and even the splendor of the light curtain dimmed a lot, Hong Xia Fairy made her move. Hong Xia Fairy's body was really graceful. When she raised her hand and waved the red silk, it was more like she was dancing than controlling her magic power. Boom! The disciples in the square also cheered, and their hearts were full of admiration. Are all the skills of the Huanhua sect so beautiful? Of course, it was beautiful. The power of the red silk was also amazing. The red silk danced in the air like a spiritual snake, flashing out dozens of red phantoms. The red splendor dyed the air within the illusory array red. In Zhang Xian's mind, the red silk also split into 3, flying towards him from different directions. Zhang Xian had never fought with Hong Xia Fairy before, so he naturally hadn't encountered such a strange situation. On one hand, he was controlling his magic power to support his attack on Yun Guicheng. On the other hand, he clenched his teeth and threw out a large number of yellow talismans, trying to block Hong Xia's red silk. With a light swish, one of the 3 red silks swept across, and all the yellow talismans were sucked into the red silk without making a sound. Zhang Xian squinted his eyes and activated his magic weapon. A few rays of light flew out from the magic weapon and attacked the red silk that had sucked in the yellow talismans. Xiao Hua, who was watching the battle from afar, saw this and sighed. There were indeed 3 red silk in his mind, and he couldn't tell which one was more important. However, he could still observe it with his Buddhist sense. Xiao Hua could clearly see that the red silk was constantly switching between the 3 phantoms. Just as it sucked in Zhang Xian's yellow talismans, the red silk had already turned to another phantasm, and was pouncing towards Zhang Xian. Zhang Xian's magic weapon was already attacking the phantasm. Indeed, the splendor of the crescent moon easily penetrated the red silk and flew down. Seeing that his attack had missed, Zhang Xian's heart also felt empty. The two red silk that he hadn't prepared for previously were already flying towards him. Swish! With a soft sound, the red silk flashed. Zhang Xian suddenly raised the heaven and earth spiritual qi around him, which was about a foot away from him, was sucked away by the red silk. Seeing the red silk covering the sky and covering the earth, Zhang Xian sighed and had no choice but to activate the magic tablet. Since Zhang Xian had left, Yang Fengqing naturally couldn't stay any longer. Without waiting for Hong Xia Fairy's red silk to attack him, he followed Zhang Xian's splendor out of the illusory array. Fellow Taoist Xiao. Don't tell me you still want to stay here and watch the show. Yun Guicheng kept his magic weapon and stood with his hands by his side. He said to Xiao Hua with a smile. That charm was absolutely unparalleled. That tone was absolutely warm. Chapter 1639. Junior brother Xiao, you and I are old friends. Moreover, you didn't join forces with the disciples of the Utopia faction just now. You must be thinking of old times. I appreciate your kindness. When I return to the country of Xi, I will find an opportunity to repay you. Yun Guicheng said to himself. Fairy Hong Xia took back the red silk. The red clouds in the sky were gathered in the red silk. Together with her bright red clothes, it really looked like a mass of red clouds. Ha, ha, Xiao Hua said with a smile, it's a pity. You and I are old friends, but this sword embryo is also something I like. If senior brother Yun is thinking of old times, please leave the illusory spell. I appreciate your kindness. When I return to the country of Xi, I will find an opportunity to visit senior brother Yun. Hearing Xiao Hua's almost identical words, Yun Guicheng's face was slightly angry. He looked up at the huge candles above the illusory spell. There were still about 30% of them unburned. He activated his magic power and turned to Fairy Hong Xia, saying, Junior sister, stand aside and watch how I deal with this guy. Fairy Hong Xia furrowed her brows and glanced at Xiao Hua. She then extended her body and flew between the two of them. Xiao Hua also looked at the candles. He activated his magic power and the yellow light scattered down, protecting Xiao Hua's body. Then he took out the fire crow net. Looking at the fire crow net flying in the air like a mass of fire, Yun Guicheng also frowned. Cultivators of the Qi refining stage had limited divine thoughts. Generally, they could only activate one magic weapon. Xiao Hua took out two magic weapons at once. His divine thoughts must be extraordinary. In particular, Xiao Hua was only a cultivator in the beginning stage of the 12th level of the Qi refining stage. How could Yun Guicheng not be alarmed? Senior brother Yun, be careful. Xiao Hua shouted. The fire crow net spread out. Dozens of fire crows flashing with purple flames flapped their wings and rushed toward Yun Guicheng. Yun Guicheng curled his lips and activated his magic weapon. Just like before, half of his magic weapon was covered in green light and the other half turned into a bamboo forest to meet the fire crows. In the previous battle, Xiao Hua had already experienced the might of the greenwood giant staff. At this time, he also knew that these were all would attribute magic tools that extracted the spiritual qi of heaven and earth to take the form. Its essence was still spiritual qi. Therefore, he calmly urged the fire crow to enter the bamboo forest. Boom! With a loud sound, many bamboos were ignited. The fire raven still had some momentum left as it broke through the bamboo forest and rushed toward Yun Guicheng's protective light shield. Ouch! Everyone in the square was shocked. Was there even a need to say more? When the fire crows broke through the bamboo, it was true that fire suppressed wood, but it also showed that Xiao Hua's mana was more profound than Yun Guicheng's. Fairy Hong Xia's eyes lit up when she saw this. Yun Guicheng did not seem to have expected the fire crow to break through the bamboo so easily. While he was in a daze, the fire crow was already in front of him. In a panic, Yun Gui-chung loosens his grip and shoots out a pile of water-based yellow talismans such as ice-sealing talismans. He wants to stop Xiaohua's fire crows. Unfortunately, the purple fire crows contain a trace of Samadhi true fire, which is actually extinguished by yellow talismans. Boom! All the yellow talismans are ignited. Yun Gui-chung sees that the situation is not good. He flies backward and activates his ritual implement to retract all the brilliance. Then, he claps his hands and takes out a ritual implement that looks like a feather fan. Yun Gui-chung is chanting and his hands are also forming a ritual implement. He looks at the fire crows that are rushing over and uses the feather fan to fan them. Yun Gui-chung's fan is not a big deal. The surrounding spiritual chi of heaven and earth is absorbed by the feather fan. As the feather fan falls, a group of fire crows also flew out from the feather fan. The group of fire crows is different from Xiaohua's fire crows. Not only are they much bigger than Xiaohua's fire crows, but the fire crows are also divided into 3 colors. Oh no! Seeing Yun Gui-chung also take out a fire-based ritual implement, Xiaohua has a bad feeling. His fire crow net is based on the best fire-based spiritual stones on the ritual implement. Compared to the feather fan which can absorb the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, it is inferior. Even if his mana is stronger than Yun Gui-chung's, he can't beat him with ritual implements alone. Sure enough, the group of fire crows surrounded Xiaohua's fire crows in an instant, burning and biting each other. Although the fire crows of the feather fan are not as good as the fire crows with the true Samadhi fire, they have the advantage in numbers. Moreover, with the constant supply of spiritual chi from the feather fan, Xiaohua's fire crows have shrunk several times in just a moment. Yun Gui-chung's face shows a trace of a smile and said kindly, "Junior brother Xiao. Why don't you withdraw quickly? We can be considered a draw." Ha ha ha. Xiaohua glanced at the burning incense and knew that there is not enough time, so he laughed and said, "I haven't used my means yet. Why do you want me to withdraw?" Without waiting for him to finish laughing, Xiaohua patted the top of his head and opened his mouth. A 3-inch cloud-suppressing seal flew out from his mouth. The cloud-suppressing seal fruit is worthy of being a ritual implement. As soon as it appears, it immediately swallows the spiritual chi of heaven and earth around it and gradually expands. When it flies above Xiaohua's head, before it is fully activated, it has already turned into a 2-foot seal. Ritual implement? Yun Gui-chung is obviously knowledgeable. Seeing the movement of the cloud-suppressing seal and the fluctuation of spiritual chi on it, he knows that this thing is difficult to resist. Go, Xiaohua does not want to waste time. He activates his spiritual chi and the cloud-suppressing seal rises slightly, its size increasing gradually. When it flies to about 20 feet in the air in front of Yun Gui-chung, it has already turned into the size of a seal. The cloud-suppressing seal emits a strong confinement force that firmly suppresses Yun Gui-chung. No matter how Yun Gui-chung struggles, he is unable to break free. Around the cloud-suppressing seal, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth is disturbed and absorbed into the cloud-suppressing seal. The edge of the illusion array has already begun to shake slightly, slowly turning into bright green gas, as if it is about to be annihilated. Although the cloud-suppressing seal is not as big as when it was controlled by Fan Tong, the power of the cloud-suppressing seal is more than twice as strong. Even Yun Gui-chung, a cultivator in the late stage of Qi refining realm, is no match for this damaged ritual implement. Fairy Hongxia, who has been watching from the side, is now full of astonishment and even wants to cover her mouth with her hand. "Senior brother Yun, are you going to withdraw from the illusion array?" Xiaohua asked coldly. "You." Yun Gui-chung clenches his teeth and looks at Fairy Hongxia. Fairy Hongxia is shocked, but she does not seem to have the intention to fight. The red silk around her body is already flowing, looking very normal. "Humph," Yun Gui-chung sneered and said, "You are just relying on the power of a damaged ritual implement. If you have the ability, then fight with I in a real fight." "Senior brother Yun, there is not enough time." Xiaohua points with his finger and says with a smile, if you don't withdraw now, then don't blame me for not recognizing you as my senior brother. Fine. Yun Guicheng is furious. He slaps his hand, hitting the top of his head. As he raises his palm, a shiny spiritual talisman is taken off by him. Ah! Spiritual accumulation talisman. Xiaohua is shocked. Not only is Xiaohua shocked, but Fairy Hongxia, who is standing in the air, is also shocked. She unconsciously looks at Xiaohua with a worried look. The disciples in the square are even more shocked. They came to the Feather Immortal Gathering to find the opportunity to build their foundation, but they did not expect Yun Guicheng to be able to build his foundation and is now at the great circle of qi refining. What a different pursuit! For a cultivator with such a high level of cultivation who already had true essence in his true qi, his magical power was naturally not something a qi condensation disciple could compare with. If he couldn't win, then who could? Of course, the Feather Immortal Gathering is only limited to qi refining cultivators. There is no rule that states that Great Circle of qi refining cannot participate. Yun Guicheng cannot be said to have violated the rules of the Feather Immortal Gathering. As Yun Guicheng takes off the spiritual accumulation talisman, it immediately turns into a ball of light. Then, the ball of light converges and flies rapidly into Yun Guicheng's forehead. The moment the ball of light enters Yun Guicheng's forehead, an indescribable pressure comes from Yun Guicheng's body. The pressure cannot be suppressed and filled the entire illusory formation. The pressure gradually solidifies, and the confinement force of the cloud-suppressing seal can no longer completely confine Yun Guicheng. As the pressure on Yun Guicheng's body continues to increase, a strong suction force comes from Yun Guicheng's body. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth in the illusory formation cannot be suppressed and poured into Yun Guicheng's body. Crystal beads visible to the naked eye suddenly appear in the entire space. They are the spiritual qi of heaven and earth that has condensed into dots. However, these dots of spiritual qi of heaven and earth stopped condensing. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth in the entire illusory formation is insufficient. Moreover, as the spiritual qi of heaven and earth in the illusory formation is insufficient, the entire formation starts to distort and is about to collapse. Quick, fellow Renju, quickly remove the illusory formation. Xiong Fei is overjoyed and shouted loudly. Renju did not dare to be negligent. With a wave of her sleeve, she cast a spell, and the illusory array disappeared. The bright green gas flew into the condensed spiritual qi of heaven and earth and poured into Yun Guicheng's body. How is it? Junior brother Xiao. You, still want to fight with I? Yun Guicheng has built his foundation. The surrounding space is temporarily sealed. The entire cloud-suppressing seal is suspended in mid-air and cannot be smashed down. Even Xiaohua himself cannot escape. The most hateful thing is that when Yun Guicheng is talking to Xiaohua, he is activating the Dharma power in his hands. An extremely powerful Dharma seal is forming. Looking at the situation, Yun Guicheng does not intend to let Xiaohua out. Senior brother Yun. Without waiting for Xiaohua to speak, Fairy Hongxia activates the red silk and reluctantly flies in front of Xiaohua. Shielding him behind her, she says softly, fellow Xiao is an old acquaintance of I, senior brother, please show mercy. Old acquaintance? Ha, good. I hope this is the last time junior sister pays him back. Yun Guicheng is stunned at first. Then, he says with a smile, on account of junior sister, as long as he withdraws from the battle and gives up the sword embryo, I will let him go. Hee hee. Seeing Fairy Hongxia standing in front of him, there is an indescribable feeling in his heart. Seeing Fairy Hongxia turn to look at him, he says with a cold smile, Fairy Hongxia, you don't have to do this. The previous favor has been repaid. You and I don't owe each other anything. This sword embryo is something I must get. I will never back out. Fairy Hong, please step aside. Then, Xiaohua's mind enters the space and awakens the sleeping Goldie and the playing little Silver. He tells them to get ready. When called, they will come out of the space and attack Yunguicheng. Xiaohua has not used his true Samadhi fire and demonic hammer. How can he retreat? Unexpectedly, after hearing Xiaohua's words, Fairy Hongxia is not angry, nor does she retreat. Instead, she smiles sweetly and says in a low voice, "Since you have made up your mind, I will share it with you." Since participating in the Feather Immortal meet, Fairy Hongxia has never smiled. She has never faked her expression. Now, when she smiles, it is like a spring breeze that tickles one's heart. Xiaohua is not the only one who is stunned. Even the disciples in the square are staring at her in shock. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Fairy Hongxia turned her head and stretched out her fair, jade-like fingers. She gently brushed her cloud-like hair, and at the same time, she took off a sparkling spirit talisman. As the spirit talisman turned into a ball of light and entered the top of her head, the spirit chi of heaven and earth formed a hurricane that was sucked into her body. The surrounding spirit chi of heaven and earth began to condense again. This time, the condensed spirit pearl was 3 times larger than Yunjicheng's. Chapter 1640. Yun Guicheng had just started to build his foundation and had yet to finish. Fairy Hongxia had also started to build her foundation, and her momentum was more than 3 times greater than Yun Guicheng's. Needless to say, her cultivation was definitely more than 3 times greater than Yun Guicheng's. All the disciples were dumbfounded. What is this? A burly cultivator almost scolded, "It's fine if you don't build your foundation, but there are 2 of you at the same time. Senior brother and junior sister. Can't you build your foundation in your own cave abode? Why did you come to the Feather Immortal Assembly for no reason? Not only did you snatch the first place and the magic weapon, but you also made others jealous. Junior sister, so, you could have built your foundation long ago." Yun Guicheng was dejected and said, "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Fairy Hongxia's aura gradually increased, and the amount of spiritual energy she absorbed was much more than Yun Guicheng's. Hearing Yun Guicheng's question, she replied calmly, "Senior brother, you could have built your foundation long ago too, right? I don't seem to know either." "Quick! Yun Guicheng, you can't build your foundation together with your junior sister. Her cultivation is deeper than yours, and the spiritual energy she absorbs will definitely affect your foundation. It might even cause all your previous efforts to be wasted." Xiong Fei suddenly shouted. Yun Guicheng's heart trembled, and he no longer cared about the sword embryo and Xiaohua. He flew up and said loudly, "I give up this round. Senior Renju, please guide me." "Alright, please." Renju flew up and brought Yun Guicheng out of the square, flying towards the outside of the bright realm. "Hongxia, my little friend, come with me." Deming flew out from the pavilion outside the square, stood in midair and shouted with a low voice. "Thank you, senior." Fairy Hongxia bowed and flew up. Before she left, she turned around and smiled, "My dear Xiao, now that I'm the only one left, this sword embryo belongs to you." Fairy Hongxia's smile was full of affection. Her smile was like the most powerful imprisonment spell in the world, firmly imprisoning Xiaohua in midair. He stared blankly at Fairy Hongxia's figure flying out of the bright realm and disappearing in another direction. "Since you have made up your mind, I will share it with you." Perhaps Xiaohua was the only one who heard these words. Xiaohua thought about these words countless times, and his heart was filled with incomparable joy. It was as if there was a voice that wanted to shout out, "Concubine, concubine." She actually called herself concubine in front of me. Furthermore, he didn't hesitate to fall out with that white-faced cloud for me. And you're still calling me husband Xiao." Xiaohua was really overjoyed. Calling herself concubine was actually nothing, but in his eyes, it was different. Of course, Fairy Hongxia's smile and attitude showed that there was nothing between her and Yun Guicheng. Everything was just Yun Guicheng's wishful thinking. As for Xiaohua, was it to repay Xiaohua's previous favor, or was there another meaning behind it? Would Xiaohua have any other thoughts right now? After Deming and Renju left, Xiaohua stood blankly in midair. The cloud-suppressing seal, which was like a small mountain, was suspended high up in the sky. Although the cloud-suppressing seal was already severely damaged, a magic treasure was still a magic treasure. Its swift and fierce aura, and its atmosphere was filled with spiritual energy. It was simply not something that an artifact could compare to. The disciples present began to whisper at this moment. Zhen Qing, Zhen Yu, Qian Mo, Li Xiaoxiao, and the others also had complicated looks in their eyes. They knew that Xiaohua's cultivation had improved greatly, but they never thought that this improvement would be so great. It was really beyond their expectations. It was actually more powerful than the champion of the Feather Immortal Gathering. It was to the extent that a cultivator who was at the peak of the qi refining stage had to use the divine accumulation talisman to resist. They even saw with their own eyes that even Yungue Chong, who was at the foundation establishment stage, was still unable to stop Xiaohua. Xiaohua still had to fight against Yungue Chong. What did this mean? It meant that Xiaohua was not stingy with Yungue Chong, who was at the foundation establishment stage. Could it be that Xiaohua is more powerful than a foundation establishment cultivator? Everyone had this thought. However, it was clear that Xiaohua could not do anything to resist Yungue Chong's pressure, nor did he do anything shocking. However, everyone seemed to see from Xiaohua's calm expression that he had a card up his sleeve. What if Fairy Hongxia did not build her foundation? How would Xiaohua deal with it? This was the unanimous thought of everyone. But reality was reality. Fairy Hongxia was facing her own senior brother who was at the foundation establishment stage. She had also built her foundation. She was willing to bear the possible punishment from the Huanhua sect to help Xiaohua. What kind of affection was this? For a moment, everyone had a strange thought. Could it be that Fairy Hongxia's foundation establishment was something that Yun Jichong, who was her senior martial brother, didn't know, but a disciple from another sect did? Then, what is the relationship between Xiaohua and Fairy Hongxia? For a moment, envy, jealousy, resentment and so on were all cast on Xiaohua. Among these gazes, there was a slight resentment. Sigh, I really did not expect his cultivation to be so high. He and Fairy Hongxia, who is as beautiful as a fairy, are. That, she had mixed feelings. I thought it was only my junior sister. Moments later, Xiaohua slapped his forehead and pointed a finger at the cloud-suppressing seal. The cloud-suppressing seal spun in the air and gradually shrank in size, flying in front of Xiaohua. Xiaohua opened his mouth and the cloud-suppressing seal disappeared into his mouth. This was the difference between a magic treasure and a magic weapon. Magic weapons could not be kept in the body and could only be kept in a storage bag, but magic treasures could be kept in the body. Of course, the place where Xiaohua stored the cloud-suppressing seal in his body was different. It was the same as the place where he nurtured and repaired the sword pill. It was also the Buddha heart of the Buddha outside his Naiwan palace. This was also the result of a flash of inspiration after Xiaohua tried to store the cloud-suppressing seal in his meridians and corporeal body to no avail. At this moment, the huge incense in the air had already disappeared, and the Great Wisdom sword was stuck on the high platform. Xiaohua looked at Great Wisdom with a gentle gaze, then raised his head to look at the Golden Core cultivators. Seeing this, Zhen Qing transmitted her voice, Xiaohua, wait a moment. As she was speaking, a person flew out from the Tai Ching sect disciples. He was also in the late stage of the foundation establishment realm. He cupped his hands and said to everyone, Martial Uncle Deming and Martial Uncle Renju, I did not expect that someone would build his foundation at the last moment of the Feather Immortal Assembly. Furthermore, it was two fellow Taoists, so please wait a moment. After that cultivator finished speaking, he retreated into the crowd. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Renju flew back, followed by Deming. Renju glanced at Deming, then flew in front of Xiaohua and sized him up. Her gaze was somewhat complicated, and she raised her voice, Xiaohua of the Imperial Thunder Sect. Yes, I am Xiaohua of the Imperial Thunder Sect. Xiaohua said respectfully. Ha, I think, you are the disciple with the lowest realm participating in this feather immortal assembly, right? Xiaohua touched his nose and said with a smile, it seems so. According to what I know, not only are you the disciple with the lowest realm participating in this feather immortal assembly, but you are also the disciple with the lowest realm participating in this feather immortal assembly. As Renju spoke, she glanced at Zhen Qing and asked, I have a question to ask, but I don't know if you can answer me truthfully. Of course I can. Senior, please ask. Your cultivation should be the strongest among all the disciples. Why, did you lose to the other disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect? Xiaohua said with a smile, Senior, you are inferior. How am I the strongest? Not to mention Senior Martial Brother Yun of the Huanhua sect, I am not even a match for Senior Martial Brother Zhua of the Xuanyan school. I only dared to fight against Senior Martial Brother Yun because I had just refined this magic treasure. Senior Martial Brother Yun probably disdained to fight with me over the sword embryo because he wanted to build his foundation, right? Ha! Renju didn't ask any more questions. He had only sent Yun Jichong out to build his foundation for a short while, so he naturally had other things to do in the time it took to drink a cup of tea. She already knew a lot about Xiaohua's performance in the Feather Immortal Assembly, so she didn't expose him. She pointed with her finger and said, the sword embryo that fell from the sky is already yours. However, as I said just now, you must have the ability to take it away before it is yours. Xiaohua frowned and bowed, Senior, what do you mean? Renju said with a smile, there is a restriction set up by the elders of the Taiqing sect within 3 feet of the sword embryo. All the magic power is restricted. All the disciples who want to take the sword embryo have to use their own strength to pull it out. Only then can it be said that they have the ability to control the sword embryo. It can be said that they are fated with the sword embryo. Huh? Xiaohua didn't say anything, but all the cultivators in the square were in an uproar. Renju had already said just now that the sword embryo was heavier than a demonic tool. Looking at the size of the sword embryo, all the cultivators in the square, including the Foundation establishment and Golden Core cultivators who led the group, shook their heads in their hearts. They understood that it was absolutely impossible for them to pick up the sword embryo with their physical strength. This sword embryo probably couldn't be taken out of the Bright Realm. And the last battle of the Feather Immortal Assembly was probably a trick for the Taiqing sect to show off. Seeing Xiaohua's expression that was as calm as water, Renju suddenly had a bad feeling in her heart. In the distance, Deming also had a bad premonition. Sure enough, Xiaohua nodded and said, then this junior will go forward and give it a try. Xiaohua, let me tell you clearly. You only have one chance. If you can't pull the sword embryo out, you can't take it away. Renju's heart moved, and she reminded him. This disciple understands. As Xiaohua spoke, he flew onto the high platform. Sure enough, when he arrived 3 feet away from the Great Wisdom Sword, the true qi in his body froze and couldn't flow in the slightest. All of his magic power also disappeared, and he was no different from a mortal. The Great Wisdom Sword was inserted into the solid rock of the high platform, and only 3 feet of the sword's body was exposed. As for how much it was inserted into the rock, it couldn't be seen clearly from the outside. However, in Xiaohua's heart, the Great Wisdom Sword was roughly 6 feet long, and it was like a stick in his hand. If it didn't have the appearance of a sword hilt and sword tip, it might as well be called a stick. Thinking about the weight of the Great Wisdom Sword and the fact that it could only be inserted 3 feet into the rock after descending from the sky, it also showed the hardness of the rock. Yes, or it could be said that this magic treasure that had transformed into the Bright Realm was hard. Truthfully speaking, Xiaohua didn't have much confidence in pulling the Great Wisdom Sword out of the magic treasure. However, Xiaohua understood that this was his only chance to obtain the Great Wisdom Sword. If he failed, then in the future, thinking up to here, Xiaohua took a deep breath and didn't dare to be careless. He held the hilt of the Great Wisdom Sword with both hands, and then circulated his strength to pull it out. The sword embryo didn't move in the slightest. Xiaohua gasped. Chapter 1641. Xiaohua tried to use his strength to pull it out, and sure enough, the sword embryo was stuck between the cracks of the high platform, not moving at all. This. Xiaohua was startled, and secretly cursed. Then, Xiaohua clenched his teeth, channeled all the strength in his body to his arms, and roared with a thunderous roar, "Rise!" Who knew how many kilograms of strength was used on the sword hilt, and the hearts of the people watching from afar were also raised. However, although the great wisdom heavy sword shook slightly, it couldn't be pulled out at all. Renju's eyes showed a trace of relief. Who knew how many Tai Ching sect disciples with incomparable strength couldn't pull out the sword embryo, so how could Xiaohua do it? "Rise!" Xiaohua shouted again. This time, he had already channeled the dragonization art. The meridians all over his body were slightly twisting like a huge dragon. Even the 13,200 black spots on his body were emitting a faint fiery light. At this time, Xiaohua's body didn't have any flame, but everyone's eyes seemed to be burned by the flame. At this time, Xiaohua's figure was still thin, but in everyone's eyes, it was like an incomparably huge body that could support the heavens and earth. "Rise, rise!" In the square, some disciple who didn't know the severity of the situation shouted out. Then, all the disciples, yes, except for the Tai Ching sect disciples, followed the beat and shouted, "Rise, rise, rise, rise!" Along with everyone's cheers, the veins on Xiaohua's arms popped out, and his face was also sinister, his eyes completely red. Bean-sized beads of sweat dripped down from his temples. That great wisdom heavy sword was actually slowly pulled out inch by inch under Xiaohua's incomparably enormous strength. Seeing the sword embryo being pulled out inch by inch, everyone's mood became increasingly high, and their cheers became louder and louder. In contrast, Renju, Deming, and the other Tai Ching sect cultivators' faces gradually became gloomy. In the beginning, it was the most difficult to pull out the sword, but when it was pulled out about a foot, it was already easy. But Xiaohua didn't dare to be careless, and didn't dare to slack off in the slightest. Only when the remaining 2 feet were revealed did Xiaohua let out a sigh of relief, and did his best to raise the 6 feet long sword embryo high above his head. Immediately, the whole square boiled, as if he pulled out the sword embryo himself, and all the disciples cheered. "Good, good, Xiaohua, Xiaohua, good!" Renju flew forward, clapped her hands, and said with a forced smile, "Little friend Xiao's strength is indeed astonishing. You are the strongest person in the 3 kingdoms of cultivators. I wouldn't dare. This junior has already exhausted all his strength. If it were to grow another inch, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to pull it out." At this moment, Xiaohua's bones were indeed limp and his tendons were numb. His strength was greatly exhausted, and he had no choice but to put down the great wisdom sword. He promptly asked, "Can Junior put this thing into the storage pouch?" "Yes, of course," Renju said. Xiaohua took out a storage bag and placed the great wisdom sword inside. Sure enough, just as the great wisdom sword was placed inside, the spatial formation of the storage bag had already begun to gradually collapse. "How is it?" Renju smiled. "Sigh, I'm afraid this junior's journey back will be troublesome." Xiaohua sighed. Renju nodded. "Little friend Xiao is right. I'm afraid the trouble has only just begun." Xiaohua didn't know if Renju's words had a double meaning, but the great wisdom sword was his own. How could he give it to others? Soon after, Xiaohua descended from the sky and returned to the Imperial Thunder Sect disciples. Not to mention the envious gazes of Li Xiaoxiao and the others, and not to mention Sun Shu's slightly resentful gaze, Qian Diheng patted Xiaohua's shoulder and scolded jokingly, "Junior brother Xiao. I didn't expect, you hid your strength well." No, senior brother Qian, this junior brother is only strong. My cultivation is too far from senior brother's." Xiaohua promptly said modestly. "Damn it, who told you cultivation?" Qian Diheng narrowed his eyes and said with a smile, "Tell me honestly, how did you get a relationship with Fairy Hongxia? Quickly tell me, did you hold hands? Did you kiss?" Without waiting for Qian Diheng to finish, Xiaohua glared, senior brother Qian, you can eat spirit fruits and drink spirit wine indiscriminately. These words can't be said carelessly. This junior brother and Fairy Hongxia have some relationship, but it's far from what senior brother thinks. Just now, Fairy Hongxia was also moved by this junior brother's righteousness, so she changed sides at the last moment. TSK, righteousness. Junior brother Xiao, forget it, I will call you senior brother Xiao. You made the junior sister and senior brother fall out, and you have some relationship. Qian Diheng curled his lips and was about to say something when Renju clapped her hands in midair. Disciples, this year's Feather Immortal Gathering has ended successfully. Counting with one's fingers, there are actually 14 disciples in the 13 cultivation countries who have built their foundation. This is a good result in all the previous Feather Immortal Gatherings. Our Taiqing sect also feels very proud. Especially now that the extraterrestrial divine item has an owner, it's a gift for a beauty, a treasure sword for a hero. It's also solved a big problem for our Taiqing sect. Moreover, I didn't expect that the extraterrestrial divine item would be obtained by the disciple with the lowest cultivation in this Feather Immortal Gathering. This disciple, TSK, actually forced the first place of the Feather Immortal Gathering to build his foundation. Maybe he's the real first place of this gathering. Boom, there was a burst of sound. Of course, many things had happened in this short period of time. Many people still hadn't come to their senses. It was only until Renju said that everyone started whispering and looking at Xiaohua from the Imperial Thunder School. Xiaohua couldn't distinguish the many meanings contained in those gazes. Now, he could be considered to be famous in the Feather Immortal Gathering. Xiaohua smiled bitterly in his heart, but when he heard Renju say that there were 14 disciples in the Qi refining stage who had built their foundation, he was moved and understood why the first two places of this Feather Immortal Gathering were the disciples of the country of Xi. The disciples of the country of Meng and the country of Lian were all in the foundation building stage. Just like in the Thunder Controlling sect, Qian Hong had the highest cultivation, and Qian Mo, who had the second highest cultivation, was naturally the first among all the disciples. And at this time, Renju pushed him out. Xiaohua couldn't guess what she was thinking. In mid-air, Renju said a few more things and finally smiled. My Taiqing sect has already prepared spiritual wine and spiritual fruits. Fellow Taoists and disciples of various sects, please go back to your pavilions and rest for a while. Then, you can go to the square to attend the banquet. After we part today, we can only meet again after 10 years. Although 10 years is really too short for us cultivators, things have changed. 10 years later, someone might be a senior, or maybe none of you here will participate in the Feather Immortal Gathering again. Therefore, we should cherish today's meeting even more. I hope that when you meet again in the future, you can also remember today's meeting. We can help each other and tolerate each other. After Renju finished speaking, the disciples of various sects returned to their pavilions. The disciples of the Taiqing sect were busy arranging the things needed for the banquet in the square. Xiaohua had just returned to the quiet room when he was called by Zhen Qing. Xiaohua thought that Zhen Qing would ask him why he gave up, so he had already thought of an excuse. Holding Zhen Qing, he didn't say much and only said, "Let me take a look at that sword embryo." Xiaohua nodded and took out the sword embryo from his storage bag. In such a short time, the storage bag's spatial formation was about to be crushed. What Renju said was indeed true. But then, Xiaohua was stunned. Since this sword embryo has never been pulled out by anyone, how did the Taiqing sect know that this sword embryo is heavy enough to crush the storage bag? What's wrong? Seeing that Xiaohua took out the sword embryo and didn't hand it over to him, Zhen Qing asked curiously. "It's nothing, Grandmaster." Xiaohua said with a smile, "This sword embryo is really heavy. Grandmaster, be careful." "Yes, I understand." Zhen Qing nodded. He didn't believe it. He was a golden core cultivator, so it was impossible for him to not be able to pick up this sword embryo. When Zhen Qing took the sword embryo, even though he was prepared, his arms still sank slightly. He was shocked. "It's really heavy." Then, he looked at Xiaohua's skinny body and carefully examined the sword embryo with his divine sense. He shook his head. Xiaohua, this sword embryo was blocked by the restriction on the stage. I couldn't look at it carefully and thought that it was indeed the divine object that Renju talked about. But now that I've looked at it carefully, I feel that this thing is a bit strange. Other than being heavy, it has no other use. I'm afraid you've been tricked by the Taiqing sect. This. Xiaohua pretended to be shocked and said anxiously, what do you mean? The best way is to return this thing to the Taiqing sect at the banquet. Zhenqing smiled and looked at Xiaohua. Xiaohua thought for a bit and shook his head. I'm afraid this method will make my Imperial Thunder sect lose face. It's not appropriate. Haha, Zhenqing laughed and handed Pan Ruo to Xiaohua. Xiaohua put it in another storage bag. This storage bag was the one he got from the Changbai sect. Zhenqing said again, you're right. Since you've won, this thing belongs to my Imperial Thunder sect. There's no reason to return it. If there's trouble because of this, then let the trouble come even more fiercely. Xiaohua's face was filled with joy. He cupped his hands and said, thank you, martial ancestor. It's no problem. You were able to force the Huanhua sect's Qi Refinement Peak disciple to enter Foundation building during the Feather Immortal Gathering. You've really made my Imperial Thunder sect lose face. How can I not protect you? You're not the number one disciple, but now your reputation is even greater than the number one disciple. Zhenqing said with a smile. Even Renju of the Taiqing sect was shocked. I was just lucky. That's not what I'm talking about. Zhenqing's face showed a rare cunning expression. You also need to cultivate well and quickly reach the foundation establishment stage. If you can dual cultivate with that fairy-like foundation establishment cultivator of the Huanhua sect, it will be a good story for my Imperial Thunder sect and the Huanhua sect. Xiaohua's face turned red. He muttered a few words and said, I'll do it. I'll do it. Yes, go. If you have any difficulties in the future, you can come and find me. Zhenqing waved his hand and was in a good mood. Also, this sword embryo seems to be related to an item in my Imperial Thunder sect. I only have a vague impression of it. When I find it in the future, I'll tell you. Xiaohua was overjoyed. He bowed and thanked Zhenqing. When he came out, he saw Zhenyu looking for Zhenqing with a gloomy face. When he saw Xiaohua, Zhenyu's lips moved a few times as if he wanted to say something. However, in the end, he didn't say anything. Xiaohua knew what he was thinking, but he didn't point it out. He smiled and bowed. Why did Martial Uncle Zhenqing call you? Zhenyu couldn't help but ask. It's nothing. He just wanted to ask about my cultivation. Xiaohua said with a smile, I'll also report to Martial Ancestor that the magic treasure was only successfully refined last night. Zhenyu's heart fell. He said with a smile, not bad, Xiaohua. You're broad-minded. You'll definitely become a great person in the future. Please teach me in the future, Martial Uncle. Xiaohua said respectfully. Yes, go. Make some preparations. The banquet is about to start. Zhenyu waved his hand and went to find Zhenqing. Xiaohua stared at Zhenqing's back. He then turned around and returned to his meditation room. Not long later, the Taiqing sect's disciples came to invite Xiaohua. Xiaohua followed the disciples to the plaza. He saw hundreds of jade tables placed all over the plaza. On the tables, there were many spiritual wines and spiritual fruits. Everything was already prepared. Author's note, I'll only update once. In the future, depending on the condition of the third flower, I'll try to update twice on weekends. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote. Chapter 1642. The final banquet of the Feather Immortal Meet was naturally in the cultivation countries. The countries of Xi, Meng, and Lian were arranged in different regions. Xiao Hua came to the banquet of the Imperial Thunder sect and scanned the area with his spiritual sense. He knew that Yun Jicheng and Fairy Hong Xia from the Huanhua sect weren't present. They should still be in the foundation establishment stage. After thinking for a while, Xiao Hua casually sat down. Looking at the noisy scene, he picked up a spiritual fruit and ate it. The wine pot on the table emitted a faint fragrance of wine. It was a pity that Xiao Hua wasn't interested in spiritual wine and couldn't bring himself to taste it. Soon, Ren Zhu appeared in the square. She raised her wine cup and said something to improve their friendship. Xiao Hua, who was below the stage, cursed in his heart. They had already fought, those who died were dead, and those who entered the foundation establishment stage were already in the foundation establishment stage. What was the point of saying all this now? However, when he saw Zhen Qing and the other Golden Core stage cultivators coming over with smiles and clapping from time to time, he saw them raising their wine cups at the right time. They seemed to be very harmonious. Is there a need for this? Xiao Hua sneered. However, he immediately thought of what Zhen Qing said to him. There are many things that are not up to you. Sometimes, you don't want to do it, but you have to force yourself to do it. How can I not force myself? Xiao Hua once again thought of how Zhen Yu had stopped him from defeating Kun Fian. Perhaps, only by cultivating to become even stronger, and trampling all these cultured and fake people under my feet, would I be able to obtain my freedom. Junior brother Xiao, congratulations, congratulations. While Xiao Hua was deep in thought, Ren Zhu had already finished speaking. Qian Diheng walked over to Xiao Hua with a cup of wine in his hand and said, I came to the Feather Immortal Assembly to broaden my horizons. I didn't think that I would be able to get acquainted with a person like Junior Brother Xiao. It is truly an honor. Come, Junior Brother Xiao, let me give you a toast. Xiao Hua glanced at Qian Diheng, and a faint smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. He had come to the Feather Immortal Assembly because of Qian Diheng. If it wasn't for the fact that Qian Diheng's master had treated him as a stepping stone, he would never have come to the Taiqing sect, and he wouldn't have met Fairy Hong Xia, so he wouldn't have been able to find out about Fairy Hong Xia's intentions. Karma. Karma. Xiao Hua sighed and raised his wine cup. Of course, there was a layer of karma. Although this Qian Diheng was a disciple of the Heavenly Thunder Palace and usually looked arrogant, compared to Zhenqikue, he was very easy to get along with. The two could not be mentioned in the same breath, so Xiao Hua was still willing to talk to him more. When the spiritual wine entered his stomach, it was naturally another taste. When Qian Diheng raised his cup again, Xiao Hua shook his head slightly and said with a smile, a toast is a token of my sincerity. If I drink more, it would be a burden to this little brother. I hope that senior brother Qian can understand. Qian Diheng was taken aback. He shook his head with a smile and said, Junior brother Xiao, although we cultivators mainly focus on improving our cultivation, it is also necessary for us to socialize. Otherwise, if I had to do everything by myself, I'm afraid it would be very difficult. Really? Please advise me. Xiao Hua said with a smile. To put it simply, if you have a wide network, others will naturally think of you and invite you to participate in anything that happens in the cultivation world. Or, if you need something that you can't get on your own, you can pass it on to people you know. Although these people won't go out of their way to look for you, they have their own connections. In this way, won't your chances be greater? Xiao Hua said with a smile, although you say so, but I am not good with words and don't know how to socialize. Moreover, I feel that if I were a nascent soul cultivator now, I would just casually say a few words and foundation establishment cultivators would probably send themselves to me, right? Qian Diheng shook his head. I don't want to talk to you anymore. My goal is foundation establishment. I have never thought about nascent soul. Moreover, if I don't have these connections and don't have many opportunities, how can I talk about foundation establishment? Gold core. After Qian Diheng went to the side to propose a toast, Xiao Hua sat down again. He did not agree with Qian Diheng's point of view in his heart. It was difficult to improve a cultivation realm, time was tight, and the lifespan of a cultivator was limited. If they did not put their hard work into cultivation, how could they talk about socializing? Just as he was thinking, Sun Shu came again. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. Senior sister Sun, you don't have to say anything, right? Hee, junior brother Xiao, I was really shocked just now. I know that I definitely don't have the strength to defeat Yun Guicheng of the Huanhua sect. Stop, senior sister Sun, can we not mention that? Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand. You also know that I got a bargain. A bargain? Sun Shu smiled bitterly. Magic treasures, are they easy to refine? Forget it, don't mention it. But, what about the other disciple of the Huanhua sect? After today's Feather Immortal Assembly, the news that Fairy Hong Xia did not hesitate to fight with her senior brother for her lover will spread throughout the entire country of Xi. My junior sister Shui. When he heard Sun Shu mention lover, Xiaohua's face became hot. He said in a low voice, Senior sister Sun, what are you talking about, junior brother, don't explain. You should leave these words for junior sister Shui. Sun Shu waved her hand. Then, she narrowed her eyes. If you want me to put in a good word for you in front of junior sister Shui, you have to drink this wine. As for the training in a few years, you have to go too. When Shui was mentioned, Xiaohua had another feeling in his heart. If he were to refute Sun Shu now, it seemed that he did have some feelings for Shui. Forget it, Xiaohua raised his cup and said, then I'll have to trouble senior sister Sun to put in a good word for me. Hee, no problem. An indescribable smile appeared on Sun Shu's face. After Sun Shu finished the toast, Li Xiaoxiao, Kun Fian and the others also came to toast. Although Xiaohua's realm was the lowest, in everyone's eyes, he was definitely second only to Qianhong, who was gradually advancing. Even Qian Mo did not dare to say that he was ranked in front of Xiaohua. Xiaohua was helpless and could only drink one by one. Fortunately, as a cultivator, if he did not like the effect of the spiritual wine, he could use his magic power to dissolve it. After Xiaohua drank the wine of his senior brothers and sisters, the atmosphere in the square also became lively. After all, the entire Feather Immortal Assembly had already ended, the disciples who could not establish foundation could only rely on their future opportunities. But that was all in the future. After dozens of days of life and death battles, it was normal for them to be happy for a short while. Junior brother Xiao, I will toast you. A slightly unfamiliar voice resounded from Xiaohua's left side. When Xiaohua turned around, he was stunned and thought, oh no, someone wants to ask for something. The person who came was a foundation establishment cultivator. It was none other than the Tai Ching sect disciple Xiaohua met in the first round of the Feather Immortal Assembly, He Fang Yuan. He must have stabilized his realm in these dozens of days, thus he appeared here. Xiaohua did not dare to be negligent, he quickly stood up and smiled apologetically. Senior He, you are a foundation establishment cultivator, this junior cannot be called junior brother. He Fang Yuan held the wine cup in his hand and smiled. I's foundation establishment opportunity is all thanks to junior brother Xiao. Others may not know the reason, but how could I not know? Junior brother Xiao's breadth of mind is rarely seen in the whole of Dawn Rain Continent. Your name will definitely shake Dawn Rain Continent in the future. I am still taking advantage of you by calling you junior brother. In the future, please take care of me, junior brother. What is this? Xiaohua looked left and right. Fortunately, no one was paying attention to their conversation. Hee, junior brother Xiao, don't worry. He Fang Yuan smiled. I did not tell anyone about what happened in the illusion formation. That's good, that was senior He's opportunity, this junior was merely adding fuel to the fire. Xiaohua was slightly relieved, he clapped his hands and took out the Tai Yi green light rod, smiling. Senior, you are here to ask for this, right? I have already prepared it. He Fang Yuan, however, shook his head and smiled. I came for this item, but I am not here to ask for it. Junior brother Xiao, drink this cup of wine and I will explain. Seeing that he was not here to ask for something, Xiaohua was happy. He kept the magic artifact and drank a cup of wine with Fang Yuan. Only then did Fang Yuan take out a jade slip, smiling. This Tai-E green light rod was refined from a Tai-E green light rod that I obtained when I was traveling in my early years. It is I's personal item. Junior brother Xiao has given I a great favor. I am unable to repay you, so I will give this magic artifact to you. This jade slip contains the refinement method of the Tai-E green light rod. Please keep it well. Great. Xiaohua received the jade slip, smiling. Many thanks, Senior He. Seeing that Xiaohua kept calling him senior, Fang Yuan was also helpless. He thought for a while and said, this Tai-E green light is innate metal energy. Back then, when I asked the sex elder to refine this magic artifact, the elder said that refining a magic artifact alone would not display the subtlety of the Tai-E green light. Only refining a flying sword, or refining the body would have great use. Xiaohua's heart moved when he heard this, asking curiously, refining a flying sword? Refining the body? How to refine it? Junior really does not understand. Fang Yuan explained, refining the Tai-E green light into a flying sword will make the flying sword sharper by 30%. Its quality far surpasses ordinary flying swords. Moreover, according to the elder, if this item is placed in Huan country, it is a rare opportunity, a supreme item for nurturing flying swords. Xiaohua was overjoyed, asking again, then refining the body. If junior brother Xiao cultivates to nascent soul realm, this Tai-E green light can be refined into true life light, spitting out sword light to kill people in an instant. Nascent soul realm? Xiaohua smiled bitterly. This was too far-fetched. After thinking for a while, he smiled. Then refining the flying sword method? Does Senior He have it? Of course I do not have it. Fang Yuan smiled. However, the elder left the method of separating the Tai-E green light from this magic artifact in the jade slip. If junior brother Xiao has the chance in the future, you can try it. Many thanks to Senior He for being so righteous. Xiaohua bowed in thanks. Fang Yuan saw Xiaohua receive the Tai-E green light and the jade slip, and was also happy. He had borrowed Xiaohua's hands to reach Foundation establishment. If he did not return this huge favor, it would affect his mental state in the future. Right now, he was relieved and drank another cup with Xiaohua. After sending off Fang Yuan, Xiaohua had yet to sit down when another voice came from the right. Junior brother Xiao, you are really busy, even a Foundation establishment cultivator came to toast you. Chapter 1643. This was a female voice. When Xiaohua turned his head to look, he saw that it was also a Foundation establishment cultivator. It was Zhong Xiaohan from Immortal Music Sect, who had reached Foundation establishment under Xiaohua. Beside Zhong Xiaohan was a male cultivator, whom Xiaohua also recognized. It was Zhong Tianqing from Xian Le Sect, who was guarding in front of the illusion array that day. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. Needless to say, this Zhong Xiaohan had the same intention as Fang Yuan. He would have to drink this cup of wine. Senior Zhong, Junior congratulates Senior for successfully reaching Foundation establishment. Xiaohua very much took the initiative to raise his cup and say. Zhong Xiaohan's beautiful eyes stared fixedly at Xiaohua as she raised her wine cup and drained it in one gulp. Soon after, she smiled and said, actually, I came here to ask something. However, after seeing Tai Ching Sect's Fang Yuan come over to propose a toast, I'm afraid I don't need to ask anymore. Xiaohua rolled his eyes and said to himself, if you don't need to ask, then don't ask. What's the point of saying it out loud? I didn't take anything from you. Who would have thought that Zhong Xiaohan would say, I boast of my good looks, and I'm in the Foundation establishment stage now. I originally wanted to talk more with Junior Martial Brother Xiao, but I didn't expect that Junior Martial Brother Xiao had already been taken. Today, you even acted in a scene of a hero and beauty meeting in the Hao realm, which really made me jealous. Sigh, I don't have a chance anymore. I can only wish junior martial brother Xiao good luck. Ah. Xiaohua didn't expect that Zhong Xiaohan, who appeared to be rather quiet and virtuous, would say such words, and a trace of red appeared on his face. Zhong Tian, who was at the side, took half a step forward and said with a smile, "My sister always speaks casually. Junior brother Xiao, please don't blame her. We are here today to thank junior brother Xiao for his kindness that day. Come, I address myself as senior brother and propose a toast to junior brother Xiao." "I don't dare." Xiaohua raised his cup and drank. Zhong Tianqing took out a storage pouch from his bosom and handed it over to Xiaohua. He said with a smile, "It's all thanks to junior martial brother Xiao that my humble sister was able to step into the foundation building realm. These past few days, I've been thinking for a long time, but I still don't know what to give to junior martial brother. The day before yesterday, I just came out of seclusion and learned that junior martial brother Xiao has some hobbies. It just so happens that I also have something in my hands. Is it to junior martial brother's liking?" "Oh." Xiaohua's heart stirred. He took the storage pouch and saw that there weren't many things inside. There were some foundation establishment dawn and a white skull. That skull was different from an ordinary one. It was at least 10 times bigger. "This is something I obtained from Million Meng Mountains. It should be similar to my sister's soul collecting bell, they are both related to souls." Zhong Tianqing said via voice transmission, "This item has been with I for a long time. Now, I can give it to junior brother Xiao. I hope junior brother Xiao will accept it. As for the other foundation establishment pills, I have accumulated over the years. Now that I have no use for them, I will give them to junior brother Xiao." Zhong Xiaohan smiled and said, "I hope junior brother Xiao will soon complete the qi refining stage and enter the foundation establishment stage. With junior martial brother Xiao's cultivation, I'm afraid he'll be able to build his foundation within a few years. I will respectfully listen to junior martial brother Xiao's good news from Immortal Music Sect." Zhong Tianqing clapped his hands and said, "I also have a lot of hatred right now. Why wasn't I in the same group as junior martial brother Xiao? Fate, fate." Xiaohua rubbed his nose and laughed. After receiving the storage pouch, Zhong Tianqing and Zhong Xiaohan exchanged a few words. Before leaving, Zhong Tianqing even invited Xiaohua to visit Immortal Music Sect when he travels in the future. Xiaohua naturally agreed with a smile. He was very confident that he would be able to build his foundation in a few years. After that, he would naturally travel in the Xiaoyu continent. Perhaps this is also a form of socializing. Xiaohua thought of Qian Diheng's words. Soon after, another dozen or so disciples came over to chat with Xiaohua. Among them, there were those who admired Xiaohua's cultivation, and there were also those who were jealous of Xiaohua's relationship with Fairy Hongxia. Xiaohua casually dismissed them all. Only when it was deep into the night did he return to his quiet room. On the square, there were still many heroic cultivators who were still calling out to their friends, as if they really wanted to get drunk. Xiaohua returned to his quiet room and activated the restriction. Then, he closed his eyes for a moment. With a clap of his hand, he took out the Great Wisdom Sword from his storage pouch. However, in the middle of the night, the storage pouch's formation had been crushed again. It looked like this storage pouch could not be used again. Holding the Great Wisdom Sword in his hand, a familiar feeling came from his hand. That ice-cold feeling seemed to have originated from a long time ago. Calling Goldie out from the space, he asked. Although Goldie did not know the name of the Great Wisdom Sword, it knew that this thing was once used by Xiaohua. It even said that Xiaohua used this sword embryo as a staff. Heavenly staff technique? In an instant, Xiaohua came to a realization. After sending Goldie into the space, he took the sword embryo and slowly recalled it in his quiet room. Fortunately, although Xiaohua had lost his memory, as long as he could remember the beginning, the following memories would surge like a spring. The 360 moves of the Heavenly Staff technique were quickly recalled. However, recalling the staff technique, Xiaohua did not know whether to laugh or cry. fighting in the cultivation world, did not seem to need any moves, right? Moreover, this great wisdom sword was a sword embryo, not a root. It was inferior to the tiny green light staff. However, the tiny green light staff was too light. He could not use it at all. Moreover, as for the tiny green light, Xiaohua naturally used it to nurture the sword pill. It was impossible to use it as a staff. If I could fuse the devil spear tip, devil spear shaft, and that pair of devil hammers with this sword embryo and make it into a staff, how good would that be? An unimaginable thought suddenly appeared in Xiaohua's mind. However, he immediately denied it. How heavy would the weight of these things be when put together? Even Xiaohua himself would not be able to carry it, right? Not to mention how to fuse these things together. Let's get the tiny green light out first. Xiaohua thought and tried to send the sword embryo into the space. Fortunately, it was very easy to store it in the space. Moreover, it seemed that the ground did not have any signs of collapsing. When Xiaohua took out the storage pouch that Zhong Tianqing had given him and sent the foundation establishment pill and the skull into the space, something strange suddenly happened. Just as the skull was placed into the space, a light blue lightning suddenly burst out from the space. With a shwa sound, it struck the skull. Zalala, the lightning lingered on the skull, emitting a layer of blue brilliance. Moreover, the lightning struck again and again, without end. Not long after, the entire skull was covered in a layer of lightning. Immediately after, the two white bones that were previously placed in the space actually flew over on their own. The lightning on them swayed and produced thin threads of light that connected with the lightning on the skull. These three white bones were actually faintly pieced together like this. Xiaohua was aghast. Seeing this scene, even if he did not understand what kind of talismans were, he knew that these white bones that carried the green seal text were definitely not ordinary white bones. Perhaps there was something strange about them. Just as he was thinking, within the faint green brilliance, a string of strange green seal text appeared. One by one, they floated above the space. Following the formation of these green seal text, the entire space suddenly flashed with a golden light. That golden light was very strange, but also incomparably sacred. However, before Xiaohua could notice anything, that golden light disappeared without a trace. Strange, Xiaohua broke out in a cold sweat. He always thought that he was the master of his own space. Although he didn't have absolute control, he was very clear about what was and what wasn't. After the golden light disappeared, he couldn't find any trace of it. How could he not be afraid? After searching for a long time, it seemed that he did not find anything unusual. Xiaohua's mind flitted over the green seal text. In an instant, that green seal text suddenly disappeared, and in Xiaohua's mind, some green seal text that recorded talismans appeared. However, following these talismans, Xiaohua seemed to recall some other strange talismans in his mind. These talismans were different from what Xiaohua usually saw. It seemed that each talisman claimed to be one, but when all the talismans were put together, they formed another talisman. Xiaohua even saw that this talisman was actually in the shape of a rabbit. This is a rabbit talisman. Xiaohua suddenly remembered. Formation. Xiaohua was excited. He knew the use of formations on the Xiaoyu continent. He did not expect that he actually knew about formations before. However, when Xiaohua had just placed the skull and the two white bones in a separate place in the space, before he had the time to carefully comprehend the rabbit talisman that had suddenly appeared, he saw the restriction in the quiet room shake, as if someone was calling out to Xiaohua. When Xiaohua removed the restriction, he saw Sun Shu standing in front of the door. He was informing Xiaohua that the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect would gather in front of the pavilion in 30 minutes. They would return together with the other sects in the country of Shi. So fast. Xiaohua looked at the sky outside. It seemed that it was still early. He could not help but feel a little surprised. He had nothing to pack, so he just stood at the door of the quiet room and talked to Sun Shu. Since the Feather Immortal Assembly has ended, we naturally have to return to the Imperial Thunder sect as soon as possible. We have fought for a long time in the Feather Immortal Assembly, so we have some comprehensions. We still have to return to the sect and carefully savor these comprehensions. On one hand, we strive to improve our cultivation, and on the other hand, we have to find the opportunity to build our foundation. Sun Shu said with a smile, there have been such examples in the past. Some disciples did not have a good ranking in the Feather Immortal Assembly, but instead returned to the sect to build their foundation. Xiaohua understood that those who could participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly, other than cultivators like Qian Diheng and himself, were also lacking in opportunities. Perhaps they would encounter one at any time. At this moment, Xiaohua suddenly felt a gaze sweep past him. It gave him an extremely uncomfortable feeling. Xiaohua did not turn back. He only released his Buddhist awareness. As expected, there was a quiet room at the end of the pavilion. A head popped out from the quiet room. It was Min Gu. This guy was staring at him fiercely and muttering something in his mouth. That's strange. I did not provoke this guy. Why, am I being targeted? Xiaohua was extremely puzzled. Previously, when he visited him, he was cursed by him. Now. Oh, right. Last night at the banquet, Min Gu and Yuan Bo seemed to be not far away. They did not come to propose a toast. It seems that there were many people who proposed a toast last night. There were people from almost every sect. However, none of the disciples from the Changbai sect came. Xiaohua suddenly thought of the banquet. A trace of vigilance rose in his heart. Although the disciples of the Changbai sect did not dare to mess around at the Feather Immortal Assembly, this does not mean that they will not cause trouble for me in the future. Chapter 1644. There were 5 sects from the country of Shi that came to the Taiqing sect to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly. They were the Splendid Sect, Xuanyan School, Qiqiao Sect, Imperial Thunder Sect, and Huanhua Sect. However, Yun Guicheng and Fairy Hongxia were in the process of building their foundation and couldn't leave for the time being. Therefore, only the Imperial Thunder Sect and the other 3 sects left together. This year, the 5 major sects in the country of Shi gained a lot from the Feather Immortal Assembly. Other than the Xuanyan school that didn't have any disciples in the foundation establishment stage, the other 4 sects all had disciples in the foundation establishment stage. Especially the Huanhua sect, there were actually 2 disciples in the foundation establishment stage. Of course, the Huanhua sect's Yun Guicheng and Fairy Hongxia, who were in the Qi refinement realm, had some tricks up their sleeves. However, it was undeniable that they were in the foundation establishment stage. There were almost 100 cultivators that returned to the country of Shi. The worry in Xiaohua's heart disappeared. Even if the Changbai sect had some ideas, they would temporarily restrain themselves after the Feather Immortal Assembly. They definitely wouldn't face the 4 sects of the country of Shi. Due to the other 3 sects' different routes from the Taiqing sect back to the country of Shi, the journey took more than a month. During this time, the disciples of the 4 sects got along well and often visited each other's flying treasures. Although Xiaohua hadn't been to the flying boat of the Splendid Sect, the flying shuttle of the Xuanyan School, and the immortal bird of the Qiqiao Sect, the disciples of the 3 sects often visited Xiaohua on the Thunderboat. After all, Xiaohua's fleeting performance in the Feather Immortal Assembly was too shocking. These disciples all felt that Xiaohua was a hidden expert and was at least in the Qi refinement realm. However, Xiaohua was indeed in the early stage of the 12th layer of the Qi refinement realm and was about to enter the middle stage. This wasn't just seen through magic. Even the disciples of the other 3 sects could clearly feel that this guy was in the early stage of the 12th layer of the Qi refinement realm. He was definitely not lying. As for Xiaohua, during the exchanges with the disciples of the other 3 sects, he received many precious experiences in the middle stage of the 12th layer of the Qi refinement realm. Although the eldest senior brother Xiang Yang had told him about these experiences, it was only one-sided. Xiaohua benefited a lot from listening to the experiences of so many different disciples. Not long after flying to the country of Shi, he actually stepped into the middle stage of the 12th layer of the Qi refinement realm. How is that possible? Not only were the probing disciples confused, even the Foundation Establishment cultivators and Golden Core cultivators from the Shanghua sect, Xuanyan school, and Qiqiao sect were surprised. How could a Qi refining realm early stage disciple defeat a Qi refining realm peak disciple? If there was a reason, it could only be the magic treasure. Since they had entered the country of Shi, everyone heaved a sigh of relief and went their separate ways, returning to their own sects. On this day, the thunderboat of the Imperial Thunder sect had just arrived at a mountain stream and was about to fly in the direction of the Imperial Thunder sect. This route was the shortest one. If everything went well, they would be able to return to the shocking Thunder Peak in 10 days. But at this moment, an incomparable feeling of fear came from the depths of Xiao Hua's heart. Xiao Hua had encountered this kind of fear before. It should be a kind of feeling, a kind of vigilance of encountering danger. Martial Ancestor Zhen. Xiao Hua didn't dare to delay and hurriedly transmitted his voice, "Disciple has something to report." Seeing that Xiao Hua was using telepathy, Zhen Qing found it strange. She waved her hand and set up a restriction. She asked, "What's the matter?" Reporting to Martial Ancestor, Disciple, wants to ask, if an enemy attacks my Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples, would they lay an ambush in front? Xiao Hua asked anxiously. This. Zhen Qing was slightly taken aback. Our Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples don't seem to have anything that others would covet, right? That sword embryo of yours can't be considered a treasure. It can't be worth the attention of a middle-stage Golden Core cultivator, right? Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. Martial Ancestor, could it be that you forgot about the storage bag of the Changbai sect? Zhen Qing's expression became serious. She nodded and said, "Yes. Although we have already returned 90% of the things in the storage bag to the Taibai sect, the other sects don't know about it. If they have the heart to covet it, we will be in trouble." Then, she frowned. The distance of 10 days isn't far, but it isn't near either. I don't know which thief would lay an ambush here. But thinking about it, the Imperial Thunder sect and the other 3 sects went together and took a detour. It was possible that there were cultivators from other sects who took a shortcut and blocked the front. Moreover, the most hateful thing was that they knew the Imperial Thunder sect had a Golden Core cultivator, but they still dared to block them. There must be an even more powerful expert. They actually dared to bully my Imperial Thunder sect at the gate. Zhen Qing clenched her teeth. Although this was only a possibility, Zhen Qing didn't dare to gamble. Not to mention her own life, there were still the lives of her 20 disciples. She couldn't gamble. Zhen Yu, change the direction. Don't fly to the Thunderclap Peak for now. Zhen Qing made a prompt decision. She didn't care whether Xiao Hua's worry was real or not and ordered Zhen Yu. Zhen Yu was stunned. Immediately, he was shocked and hurriedly flew in the other direction according to Zhen Qing's instructions. On a beautiful plain, there was lush green grass that was about a foot long. Under the bright sun, it emitted a green brilliance. A gust of wind blew, causing the green grass to rise and fall. It was like the ripples on the water's surface that spread to the boundless distance. The fallen green grass revealed the greedy beasts hidden in the grass. Dozens of rabbits were startled by the gust of wind. They rushed out of the grass and hurriedly ran away. One of the fat rabbits was running away in a panic. With a pang sound, it bumped into an invisible area. There was clearly nothing there, but the rabbit was knocked unconscious and fell to the side. The place where the rabbit bumped into emitted a bright light and a human figure appeared. This person was wearing a camouflage robe and had a tall stature. He lowered his head and looked at the unconscious rabbit in the grass. He let out a sinister laugh and said, "Ha! The ancient people always waited for rabbits to come. I was just setting up an ambush here and I was actually found by a rabbit." As he spoke, he stretched out his left hand and a faint green flame appeared in his palm. When the flame appeared, the surroundings actually emitted a trace of coldness. At this moment, the rabbit that had fainted earlier suddenly opened its eyes. Its fat body flipped over and its 4 stubby legs stomped on the ground. It quickly scuttled into the bushes and disappeared without a trace. Ah! Seeing that the rabbit was actually pretending to be dead, the person was stunned. However, he still waved his hand and a wisp of fire flew out from the green flame into the distance. When the wisp of fire landed in the grass, gee. A few screams sounded and a foul smell came from the grass in the distance. However, there was no movement. Humph! The person in the camouflage robe clapped his hand and a gray-white brilliance hit the air in front of him. The brilliance gradually expanded and soon covered the person in the camouflage robe. However, just as the brilliance covered the person, from the distant horizon, 2 sword lights, one green and one purple, flew over like meteors and streaked across the sky to the left of the person. They're finally here. The person in the camouflage robe was startled. He clapped his hand and a yellow talisman appeared in his hand. He activated the magic power in his hand and the yellow talisman turned into a dark red brilliance and landed in the grass. In an instant, it disappeared and the person in the camouflage also disappeared into the grass. The Imperial Thunder Sect disciples rode on the Thunder ship and flew in another direction for several days. Then, they changed direction and flew back to the Imperial Thunder Sect. This time, after flying for 2 days, that very frightening feeling appeared in Xiaohua's heart again. Strange. Xiaohua frowned. He didn't understand. If there was really danger ahead, how could he have sensed it so early? If he had such a miraculous ability, then wouldn't he be able to avoid danger forever? This is really strange. I don't know how to explain it to martial ancestor Zhen. Xiaohua thought with difficulty. The first time he felt it, he could explain it as a sudden impulse. However, the second time was really hard to explain. However, after flying for another half a day, that feeling appeared again and again, making Xiaohua feel very uncomfortable. Thus, Xiaohua came to see Zhen Qing again. Xiaohua, you're still afraid that there will be cultivators in front of us? Hearing Xiaohua's worry, Zhen Qing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He frowned and said, the last time we came back, we were together with Shanghua sect disciples. It might have attracted the attention of others and let them know that we were returning to the Imperial Thunder sect. Since you mentioned it last time, I also became more vigilant and released my spiritual sense to check outside. However, Zhen Qing raised his eyes and looked outside the Thunder ship. Layers of clouds were pushed aside by the Thunder ship and the whistling heavenly wind was blocked outside the light barrier of the Thunder ship. He said in a low voice, however, in the past 10 days, I didn't see anything wrong. Furthermore, this place is very close to the Imperial Thunder sect. Which sect would send 2 golden core stage cultivators to intercept us? Even if you obtained a large number of pills during the Feather Immortal Gathering, it isn't worth 2 golden core stage cultivators to attack, right? Xiaohua bit his lips and thought for a long time. His gaze was firm as he bowed and said, Ancestor Zhen, disciple is indeed a bit uneasy. I've experienced this feeling before. It's very sharp. Ancestor, please, Zhen Qing sighed, Xiaohua, it's said that only spirit-severing stage cultivators have this ability. Even I don't have it. It's unlikely that you have it, right? Disciple doesn't dare. Xiaohua scratched his head. He was quite anxious. At this moment, he already had an idea. He thought that it should be the effect of the karmic hand in his space. However, he couldn't explain it. Disciple just wants the Imperial Thunder sect disciples to safely return to the Thunderclap Peak. I don't ask for anything else. Xiaohua said anxiously, since Ancestor has already taken a detour, can you take another detour? Forget it. Although Zhen Qing was a golden core stage cultivator, his heart had always been soft. He was just like his name, Qing. He waved his hand and shouted, Zhen, turn the Thunder ship around and take a detour. Disciple understands. Although Zhen Yu didn't understand, he still followed Zhen Qing's order and steered the thunder ship in another direction. This time, the Imperial Thunder Sect disciples were in an uproar. Previously, if they took a shortcut, they would have already arrived at the Imperial Thunder Sect. However, this time, they had to take a detour. They were afraid that they would be delayed for several days. Therefore, the qi refining disciples didn't dare to trouble Zhen Qing. They asked Qian Hong to find Xiao Hua and ask him what was going on. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.